Does your life never change? You never reach your goals. The fear of success and the fear of change can be more paralyzing than the fear of failure. If you fail, you get to stay safe right where you are in your old identity. To succeed and reach your goals, you have to become the person you were always scared to be. On our channel, we use stories like mental tools that break the scripts holding back your personal and spiritual growth. David's story is about the prison of stability, relationship problems, and the fear of success. If you want to change your life and unlock your potential, like and subscribe. David's story starts now. The digital hum of the office is the sound of a life on pause. David, a senior IT support analyst, clicks a mouse. He closes another ticket, another problem solved for someone else, another piece of his own life surrendered. His official job is to fix things, but his internal world is a catastrophic system error. He is the calm, stable computer guy, the wizard in the corporate polo shirt, and he is a complete fraud. He feels his existence draining into the beige carpet, one insignificant task at a time. This stability, this safety his family praises, feels like a slow-moving execution. He isn't living. He is just processing. He minimizes the ticket queue. Beneath it lies his secret, the game engine, the project he calls Tower. It is beautiful, it is his, and it is unfinished. He has been building the first level for 2 years. His mind races, cataloging the flaws. The water shader isn't realistic enough. The protagonist's jump animation has a 2-frame lag. The lighting on the third platform is inconsistent. This isn't dedication, it's a form of self-imprisonment. He knows what to do, but the doing is impossible. The crippling need for it to be perfect is a shield, protecting him from the one thing he truly fears, a verdict. We see this and we recognize it. This isn't the drive of an artist seeking excellence. This is the terror of the existential leap. The philosophers warned us about this moment. It is the dread that Kierkegaard spoke of, the dizziness of freedom. David is frozen not by the work, but by the choice to declare the work done. To finish it, to send it into the world, would be an irreversible act. It would make him accountable. It would force him to be someone. It is infinitely safer to remain a man of potential, forever polishing an imaginary masterpiece, in a world that, as Camus knew, guarantees no reward for the effort. He closes the engine. The fraud returns. He drives home, the silence in the car filled with the static of his unlived life. He walks in the door. Nina is there, his companion. She has built her world upon the foundation of his predictability. She smiles, but her eyes are auditing him. "How was work?" she asks. "Did you hear back about that cloud certification?" Her voice is kind, but the question is a hammer, nailing him back into the safe identity he despises. She doesn't want him to be happy. She wants him to be promoted. His stagnation isn't a crisis to her. It's the bedrock of their security. This is the nature of the double trap. His professional prison is reinforced by his domestic one. He is suffocating at work, and he comes home to a relationship that profits from his suffocation. He seeks validation from the very people whose approval depends on him not changing. This is the great Stoic error. He is desperately trying to control the opinions of others, his family, his companion, which, as Marcus Aurelius taught, is the one thing we can never control. He has given the keys to his peace of mind to his jailers, who honestly believe they are protecting him. Nina's anxiety is subtle. Anytime he mentions his restlessness, she redirects him to their shared 5-year plan, the mortgage, the vacation fund. These are the bars of the comfortable cage. He looks at his game project as a guilty secret, a betrayal of the stability everyone demands of him. So he polishes, he tweaks, he overthinks. He refines the code, not to make it better, but to delay the moment of judgment. The judgment from the world, and perhaps more terrifying, the judgment from his own home. He is hiding his true self from his companion, terrified she will see the artist as a threat to the provider. We are watching a man chained by his own armor. The perfection he seeks is just a more respectable name for fear. He has engineered his life to be safe, stable, and completely unbearable. He has become a ghost in his own story, haunting the hallways of a job he hates and a home that offered no escape. He is trapped in the work, and he is trapped in the relationship. How can a man escape his prison when his own home is built on the foundation of that very prison wall, when the people he loves are inadvertently guarding the door? The tragedy is that David is good at his job. He is efficient. He solves the problems. But this efficiency is a curse. It makes him valuable to the corporation and indispensable to his domestic stability. He is rewarded for betraying himself, paid handsomely for every hour he spends reinforcing his false identity. His paycheck is not income. It is a bribe to stay small. The unopened game engine on his computer is not just a hobby. It is a desperate plea from a part of him that is not yet dead, a map to a treasure he is too afraid to claim. The scene shifts from the office to the home. It is supposed to be a sanctuary, but for David it is merely the second front of his silent war. The lighting is warm, the sofa is comfortable. Nina, his companion, is planning their future. She talks about the cloud certification he is supposed to be studying for. Her voice is full of genuine, uncomplicated enthusiasm. She maps out their path. The certification leads to a raise. The raise leads to a better mortgage rate. The mortgage rate leads to the house with the third bedroom. It is a logical, secure, and perfectly straight line, and to David it sounds like a eulogy. He nods, staring at the television screen, though he sees nothing. He feels the mask click into place. This is the persona, the term the great psychologist Carl Jung gave to the face we build for the world. It is the social armor, the negotiated self we present to our tribe to prove we are safe, reliable, and worthy of inclusion. David's armor is the good son, the stable provider, the IT guy. It was forged by the expectations his family drilled into him, the script that defined success as a good salary, benefits, and a job title others could understand. The problem is not the mask itself. The problem is that David has worn it for so long, he is suffocating underneath it. He has become, as Jung warned, identical with his persona. He is no longer a man playing a role. He is just the role. The man who loves to build worlds, the artist who dreams in code, has been exiled, hidden away like a shameful secret. Nina, in her well-meaning practicality, is the guardian of this mask. She fell in love with the stable provider, not the restless creator. Her ambition is for their security, and that security depends entirely on his stagnation. This is the great refusal. Joseph Campbell, the master of myth, mapped this moment. It is the refusal of the call. David's hidden passion, the game he builds in the dead of night, is his call to adventure. It is the knock on the door, the invitation to a truer, more dangerous life. But he refuses to answer. He refuses because answering would mean admitting his current life is a lie. It would mean confronting the void. And Nina, his companion, stands at that door, insisting the knock is just the wind, urging him to come back to the safety of the fire. He feels a cold wave of fraudulence. He looks at her animated as she talks about network architecture, and he has to fight the urge to scream. He is lying to her, not with his words, but with his entire existence. He is a man living a borrowed life. He is performing the script, but he has forgotten his own lines. We see this and we feel the ache of inauthenticity. We have all been there, trapped in a room we built ourselves, wondering when the applause for our performance will finally be enough to make us feel real. The tragedy is that his performance is good. He is a convincing provider. But the cost is absolute. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of this as the ultimate human task, to become what one is. It is not a gentle suggestion. It is a brutal command. It demands that we strip away the layers of social expectation, family conditioning, and self-deceit to find the core of our own unique necessity. David is trapped in the opposite. He is actively unbecoming himself, day by day, for the sake of a comfort that feels increasingly like death. Nina senses his withdrawal. She mistakes his existential dread for simple fatigue. She tells him he is working too hard, that he deserves a break. She suggests they watch a series, the same one they always watch. Her suggestion is an anchor, pulling him back to the predictable, back to the safety of the mask. And he agrees. He sinks into the sofa, the mask firmly secured, letting the blue light of the screen wash over him. He is safe. He is stable. He is completely and utterly lost. He wonders in the recesses of his mind, what would happen if he just told her? If he confessed that the cloud certification makes his skin crawl, if he admitted that the only thing that feels real is the digital tower he is building. But he already knows the answer. It would shatter the foundation of their life. It would shatter her. So he stays silent. The actor remains on stage, playing his part in a tragedy, terrified to look in the mirror for fear that the mask is all that is left. The phone vibrates on the coffee table. A black mirror reflecting the ceiling. The screen illuminates. It is his mother. A familiar cold dread settles in his stomach, a physical weight that tightens his chest. This should be a moment of connection, but for David it feels like an audit, a performance review for a job he never applied for. He lets it ring twice more, a small, futile act of rebellion, before surrendering. He picks up. The call is warm, as it always is. She asks about work, about his health. He gives the standard safe answers. The network is stable. The quarterly patches are deployed. And then the praise comes, the same praise he has heard his entire adult life. She says she was just telling his aunt how proud they are of him. Thank God, she says, that David was so smart with computers. It is a real job, she emphasizes, a secure path with benefits, not like those silly dreams other people chase. The words are meant as a balm, a declaration of love, but they land like acid. A real job. The implication hangs in the air, unspoken but deafening. His other passion, the one he actually cares about, is therefore not real. It is a child's fantasy, a silly dream. As his mother continues, a second voice joins the conversation. This one is internal, sharp, and mercilessly articulate. It is the voice of his own self-rejection. It whispers, she is proud of a lie. They are all proud of a complete fraud. He feels a flush of shame, hot and quick, rising up his neck. If they knew he spent his nights building a game, they would be confused. Then they would be disappointed. They would see him as a fool, a man-child wasting his potential, throwing away the real job they sacrificed for. The voice concludes, and they would be right. We are watching the activation of a hidden pattern. This critical internal monologue, this voice that cripples him with doubt and freezes his ambition, is not his own. It is a recording. It is a psychological inheritance. It is the internalized echo of every parental expectation, every social pressure, every external definition of success he was fed since childhood. This is what the great explorers of the mind identified as the superstructure of conscience. It is the voice of the tribe, the authority of the family, embedded so deeply within his own psyche that he mistakes it for his own identity. This voice's job is not to make him happy. Its job is not to lead him to fulfillment. Its job is to keep him safe and acceptable to the group that raised him. This internal critic is, in essence, a defense mechanism. It is a preemptive strike against the possibility of disappointing the people he loves. The fear of their judgment, their confusion, their withdrawal of approval is so profound that he has developed this internal agent to police himself before he can ever commit the crime of authenticity. This voice is the governor on his engine. It ensures he never strays too far from the real job. It is the true source of his perfectionism, his agonizing inability to finish his game. Why? Because to finish the game would be to declare its importance. To publish it would be a public act of rebellion, a statement that the real job is not enough. His paralysis is not a bug. It is a feature designed to protect him from that ultimate rejection. But here is the devastating error, the cognitive mistake that keeps us all trapped. We believe this voice is telling us the truth. We mistake its authority for accuracy. We think it is a rational assessment of our worth, when it is just an echo of old fear. David, still on the phone, forces a small laugh. He says, "I know, Mom, thank you, I am being careful." He is polite, he is grateful, and he is crumbling. He feels the crushing weight of his own perceived inadequacy, the vast, dark gap between the good son on the phone and the fraudulent artist he hides. He is trapped in a vicious loop. The external praise reinforces the false identity, and the false identity fuels the internal critic that tells him he is worthless. So how does one escape a prison when the jailer is inside your own head? The path offered by the great philosophical traditions is radically simple, yet impossibly difficult. The answer is not to fight the voice. Fighting it gives it more power. Arguing with it is arguing with a shadow, validating its existence. The answer is to observe it, to see the voice not as me, but as a thought, to notice it with a detached curiosity, as if observing a weather pattern. David is not the voice that says you are a fool. He is the awareness that is listening to the voice that says you are a fool. This is the great liberation. It is the shift from being the prisoner to being the witness. This is the practice of true mindfulness. It is the act of treating our internal pain with a radical compassion, as if it were a crying child. We do not strike the child, we do not scream at it to be quiet. We acknowledge its pain, we listen to its fear, and we hold it, but we do not let it drive. David's critical voice is just old pain. It is his mother's anxiety about security. It is his father's definition of a real job. It is his own childhood fear of not being enough. It is just noise. It is an echo. It is not a verdict. It is not the truth. It is simply a very old, very tired recording playing on repeat. David ends the call. The silence of the room is now louder, filled by the resonant echoes of that internal critic. He feels exhausted, not from his day at work, but from the crushing, invisible weight of his own self-judgment. The love he receives from his family feels conditional on his failure to be himself. Their pride is his heaviest anchor. He looks at the computer where his tower project waits, the icon a dark silhouette. He cannot bring himself to open it. The voice has won this round. You are just an IT tech, it snarls, its victory assured. Don't get any ideas above your station. He slumps onto the sofa, defeated by a ghost, a man convinced that his low self-worth is not a symptom of his conditioning, but the core truth of who he is. The evening routine settles over their home, not as a comfort, but as an anesthetic. It is a thick, quiet blanket of predictability, dulling the sharp edges of his existential ache. We see David and Nina on the sofa, bathed in the cool, flickering light of the television. They are watching a series he quietly despises. It is the fourth night this week. The silence between them is not peaceful. It is empty, filled only by the canned dialogue from the screen. This routine is their fortress against the unpredictable. It is safe, it is orderly, and for David, it has become a form of sensory deprivation. He is numb. His life has become a loop, a perfectly coded sequence that runs the same program night after night, extinguishing any spark of spontaneity. A restless energy stirs beneath his paralysis. It is a small, weak pulse of defiance, a desire for just one moment to break the script. He clears his throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the quiet room. He suggests something simple, a minuscule deviation. Perhaps they could go for a walk. Perhaps they could try that new restaurant they saw, the one that is not part of their usual rotation. It is a small test, a pebble tossed into a still, stagnant pond, just to see if there are any ripples left. Nina's reaction is immediate, though not aggressive. It is a subtle tensing. She turns to him, her expression a mix of confusion and mild anxiety, as if he just suggested they set fire to the curtains. Why, she asks. Her voice is laced with a genuine practical concern. But we are comfortable here, you are tired from work. It is late. Her words are not an attack, they are a defense. She is the guardian of their stability, the high priestess of their shared routine. Her entire sense of security, which she has built upon the foundation of his predictable IT career, depends on this very stagnation. His restlessness is a threat to her. His desire for change, even this small change, feels like a crack in the foundation of their shared life. She subtly sabotages the impulse, not with malice, but with the velvet glove of practicality. We are watching a contagious fear. David's own terror of the unknown, his paralysis in the face of true change, is being mirrored and validated by his companion. His relationship has become an echo chamber for his own deepest anxieties. He looks at her, and he sees his own fear of leaving the safe path, his own terror of failure, his own reluctance to risk the comfort he has for a purpose he is not sure he can achieve. They are two people clinging to a raft, afraid to swim for a shore they cannot see, mistaking the fact they are clinging together for actual safety. Their routine is not intimacy. It is a shared armistice, a non-aggression pact signed with the terrifying forces of uncertainty. The ancient philosophers understood this trap. They knew that the fundamental law of existence is change. One of the wisest, Heraclitus, taught that we can never step into the same river twice. Life is fluid, chaotic, and in constant motion. To resist this flow is to resist life itself. David and Nina, in their fortress of routine, are attempting the impossible. They are trying to build a dam in the middle of that river. They are trying to freeze a single moment in time and call it security. But life does not allow for this. The river simply builds up behind the dam, the pressure growing, or it diverges, leaving their dam protecting a dry, dead riverbed. Their stagnation feels like death, because philosophically, it is. This is the state of rigidity. The great Eastern sages like Lao Tzu observed that the stiff and the unbending are the disciples of death. A branch that is rigid is the one that snaps in the wind. The green, supple reed that bends is the one that survives. Their relationship, their life, has become rigid. It has no flexibility, no room for the new, no space for growth. It is brittle, and David can feel the microscopic fractures spreading. His small suggestion to go for a walk was an attempt to introduce flexibility, but Nina's fear immediately reinforced the rigidity. The wind blew, and rather than bend, she held on tighter, urging him to be rigid too. David sinks back into the sofa. The impulse is gone, extinguished by her practical anxiety. He feels the numbness return, a welcome relief from the sharp sting of his failed rebellion. He is paralyzed by what Søren Kierkegaard called the dizziness of freedom. He is standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the infinite, terrifying possibilities of a different life. He is terrified of falling, so he chooses actively to step back from the edge, to return to the familiar, comfortable, soul-crushing confines of his cell. He chooses the certainty of misery over the misery of uncertainty. And his companion, sitting beside him, quietly validates that choice. She is his accomplice in this self-imprisonment. She needs him to be the stable provider, as much as he needs her to be the excuse not to change. They are perfectly, tragically aligned in their mutual fear. The television flickers, illuminating his face. He is expressionless, anesthetized. Perhaps the prison is, in its own way, exactly what they both think they need. The workday ends. It does not conclude with a sense of accomplishment, but with a simple cessation of stimuli. David drives home, the city lights blurring past him, smears of color against a deep, personal gray. He is not just tired. This is not the noble exhaustion of a day's hard work. This is a hollowing out. It is a deficit of the soul. He has spent 9 hours being a function, a utility, a disembodied voice in a headset, a pair of hands solving problems that hold zero meaning for him. He has been the IT guy, a role he plays to perfection, but the role has consumed the man. He feels like a ghost, a transparent shell going through the motions, and the drive home is just the silent commute from one empty room to another. There is a small, flickering ember of need left in him, a primal human requirement. He wants, just for a moment, to be seen. He wants to walk through his front door and be met with a connection that proves he is more than the function he performs. He needs a sanctuary, a place where the mask can come off, where the fraudulent provider can dissolve and the real aching man can simply be. This low, desperate hope is the last thing he has. He parks the car. He walks to the door. He turns the key. The house is quiet, as it always is. He steps inside, the air still and heavy with routine. There she is. Nina, his companion. She is on the sofa, in the dim light of the living room. But she is not really there. She is illuminated by the cold blue light of her phone, her face tilted down, her thumb scrolling with a steady, rhythmic motion. She is the digital ghost. She is a physical presence, but her consciousness, her energy, her attention are a million miles away, lost in the endless, flickering stream of someone else's life. He stands in the hallway, his exhaustion like a lead cloak. He waits. He waits for her to look up, to sense his arrival, to bridge the gap. He is invisible, a man waiting for permission to exist in his own home. After a long moment, She finally registers his presence. She looks up, her eyes slowly refocusing, as if emerging from a deep dive. She gives him a distracted, lukewarm smile. Her mind is still clearly on the screen. And then she speaks. The one question she could ask that would confirm his absolute irrelevance. She does not ask how he is. She does not ask how he feels. She asks, her voice absent, "Did you remember to study for the cloud certification?" It is not a question. It is a line from the script. It is the voice of the family script and the ambition imbalance speaking through her. She does not see the hollowed-out man in front of her. She sees the provider, and she is simply checking on his maintenance schedule. The fragile ember of hope he carried in is instantly extinguished. This is the true bottom. This is the moment the double trap springs shut. The professional void, where his work is a meaningless fraud, has now converged perfectly with the interpersonal void, where his home offers no connection. He is utterly, profoundly alone. He is an instrument in his work life, and he is an instrument in his home life. He is a utility, valued only for his function, to be the stable, predictable, secure earner. The man inside, the one who dreams of building worlds, the one collapsing under the weight of this emptiness, is not part of the equation. He is an inconvenient variable, a rounding error. This is the state that the great philosophers of meaning dreaded. This is not the sharp, hot pain of tragedy. This is the cold, expansive ache of the existential vacuum. The survivor and thinker Viktor Frankl saw this as the great sickness of modern life. It is the state that descends when we have everything we need to live, but absolutely no reason to. David has the good job. He has the stable home. He has the companion. He has, by all external measures, won the game. But he has no purpose, no why to his existence. And as the philosopher warned, a man who has no why cannot survive any how. His comfortable life has become an unbearable how. We are watching a man confront what Albert Camus called the absurd. It is the feeling of dislocation that comes from the collision. It is the human soul, which longs for meaning, for reason, for connection, slamming full force into a universe, a life, that is silent, indifferent, and offers none. His job is a meaningless cycle of tickets. His home is a meaningless cycle of routines. The realization that this is it, that this is the good life he was supposed to want, is the absurd joke. His soul is screaming for a purpose, and his life just hands him another certification manual. He is a stranger in his own story. The ancient pessimists like Schopenhauer might have argued this is the inevitable end, that all life is just a pendulum swinging between the pain of wanting and the boredom of having. David has achieved the safe life. He is no longer in the pain of wanting security. He has arrived. And what he finds at his destination is this profound, suffocating boredom, this absolute nothingness. He sits down, not on the sofa with her, but in a separate chair across the room. The blue light from her phone paints faint, flickering shadows on his face. He says nothing. He feels nothing. The apathy is total. He has the perfect life on paper and a hollow void in his chest. When the good life feels exactly like death, where do you turn? It is 2 a.m. The house is a tomb, silent and dark. But in the small back office, a single monitor casts a glow, illuminating David's face. He is not the hollowed-out IT technician now. He is somewhere else entirely. His fingers move across the keyboard, not with the dull rhythm of duty, but with the precise, fluid grace of creation. He is working on Tower. He is deep in the code, building a world from nothing. This is the state that researchers of the mind have tried to name. It is the flow, the optimal experience. It is that sacred space where time dissolves. His sense of self, the anxious, self-doubting David, fades away. There is only the work, the problem of the code and the solution. Action and awareness merge. He is not doing the work. He is the work. This is his only true life. The game itself is a confession, a digital metaphor for his own soul. The protagonist is trapped in a vast sprawling tower, and the only objective is to find the way down, to the foundation. But David, the creator, is as trapped as his creation. He has been polishing the first level for over 2 years. The perfectionism that paralyzes him in his day job is magnified here. The shadow animation of a flickering torch, the exact physics of a double jump, the texture of a single stone brick. He tweaks, he refines, he optimizes, he polishes. He is hiding. He is hiding in the work, using the process of creation as an excuse to avoid the terrifying act of completion. The work he does in this room is the most important thing in his life, and he treats it like a shameful addiction. This is the cave that the great mythologists spoke of, the one we are afraid to enter. It holds the treasure we are seeking, but it is guarded by our deepest fears. David's treasure is his authentic self, the creator. But to claim it, he must face the dragons. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, and perhaps the most terrifying, the fear of what his life would become if he actually succeeded. He is building his own prison, this perfect, unreleased first level. It is an exquisite, complex monument to his own terror. The spell is broken by a sound, the creak of the door. He flinches, his shoulders tensing, as if caught committing a crime. Nina stands in the doorway, wrapped in a robe, her eyes clouded with sleep and confusion. She looks at the screen, at the pixelated protagonist, at the lines of code. She does not see the architecture of his soul. She sees a distraction. Her voice is soft, but it cuts through the silence like a judgment. She asks if he is still on that little game. The diminutive little is a pinprick, deflating the world he just built. It is cute, she says, but it is so late. She asks if he should not be studying for his cloud certification in the morning. That is the moment the hammer falls. The certification, the symbol of his real life, the one that pays the bills, the one that fuels her sense of security. Her words, spoken from a place of sleepy, practical concern, are devastating. She is the subtle saboteur. She is not cruel. She is, in many ways, kind. But her kindness is a cage. Her practicality is the reinforcement of the false self he has been performing for her, for his family, for the world. She sees this act of creation, this poiesis that ancient philosophers called the highest function of humanity, as a trivial hobby that is getting in the way of the real work of being a provider. He feels a hot flush of shame. The creator vanishes, and the fraudulent IT tech returns, caught in the act of dreaming. He quickly minimizes the game engine. The monitor reverts to a blank desktop. The magic is gone, replaced by the mundane. He mumbles that she is right, that he was just finishing a thought. He is lying, closing the door to the one place he tells the truth. He feels the critical voice in his head, the voice of his family script, rise up to agree with her. It whispers that it is just a stupid game, that he is a fool for wasting his time, that he should be studying. Nina's presence has validated his worst fear, that his passion is worthless. She is not his enemy. She is his mirror. She reflects back the part of him that is terrified of change, the part that craves the safety of the known prison over the terrifying freedom of the unknown. She depends on the mask he wears. She needs him to be the stable provider because her own ambitions are balanced on that identity. His secret passion is a threat to their shared equilibrium. She has, without malice, become the guardian of his stagnation, the gentle voice that coaxes him back into his cell, reminding him that the certification is real and his dream is not. He follows her out of the office, turning off the light. The room goes dark, his tower project sleeping on the hard drive. He feels hollow again. The brief, shining moment of flow, of feeling alive and purposeful, is over. He is back in the real world, the world of mortgages and certifications, the world that has no place for him, only for the function he performs. This useless passion is the only thing that makes him feel alive. So why is he so profoundly, cripplingly ashamed of it? Why does he allow the world to convince him that the most real part of him is the least valuable? He gets into bed, the gap between him and Nina feeling as wide as an ocean. In a quiet, sunlit study, miles away from David's world of digital shadows, a man in his 70s sits at a large oak desk. This is Mr. Sterling, a man who spent 40 years as a project manager, a legendary figure who built things that scraped the sky. He is retired, but he is not idle. The concept is foreign to him. His desk is not cluttered, but it is used. Spread before him are architectural blueprints, a schematic for a community center he is advising on. He scans the complex lines with an eye that misses nothing. He is not anxious, he is not rushed, he is completely, profoundly present. His hand, steady, moves with a practiced economy. He holds a red pen. He finds a discrepancy, a flaw in the load-bearing calculations. There is no sigh of frustration. There is no emotional reaction at all. There is only a moment of focused assessment and then the correction. He draws a clean, sharp line through the incorrect figure. He writes the new calculation in the margin. Then he adds a short, definitive note, a guiding principle. Iterate. Don't perfect. It is not a suggestion. It is a command. It is the core of his entire philosophy, the engine of his life, written in 4 simple words. He then moves his eye to the next section of the plan, the hunt for the next flaw already underway. This is not work to him. This is breathing. This is the simple, clear-eyed application of purpose. We are watching the antithesis of David's entire existence. David's world is a maelstrom of internal chaos, a fog of what-ifs and paralyzing self-doubt. Sterling's world is a single, still point of absolute focus. This is the mind of a true master, but not in the way our culture has taught us to understand it. We are obsessed with the idea of the genius, the visionary, the masterpiece. We worship the myth of divine, instantaneous inspiration, but we are worshipping the wrong thing. True mastery, the kind that builds worlds and leaves a legacy, is almost never about that. It is about this. It is about the red pen. It is about a fundamental, unbreakable discipline of process. We have been taught to value the noun, the finished painting, the published book, the final product. We are so obsessed with the masterpiece that we are terrified of the verb, the actual work. This is David's prison. He is paralyzed by the image of the perfect final game. He is so terrified that this imaginary masterpiece will be judged as flawed that he refuses to ever call it complete. He hides in the act of polishing, using the process as a shield to protect him from the verdict. He is protecting his ego. He is not trying to build something. He is trying to be something. He is trying to be a genius, and the fear of failing at that impossible standard freezes him completely. Sterling operates from a radically different and infinitely more powerful philosophy. He is not concerned with the masterpiece. He is concerned with the task. His guiding principle is not perfection, it is iteration. It is the understanding that nothing is perfect on the first try. It is the philosophy of continuous, incremental improvement. His focus is not on the finished community center, months or years in the future. His focus is on the single flawed calculation on the single page in front of him right now. He is not trying to build a perfect thing. He is engaging in a perfect process. He finds his purpose not in the potential applause at the ribbon cutting, but in the simple daily act of finding the flaw, fixing the flaw, and moving to the next. This is the profound, liberating secret that the great Stoic minds understood. The reward is not the outcome. The reward is the effort. The meaning is not in the harvest. It is in the sowing. Sterling's purpose is found in the dignified, focused application of his skill to the problem at hand. He has long ago detached his sense of self-worth from the world's eventual verdict. He is concerned only with the quality of his own work in this single moment. David is the opposite. He is so hopelessly entangled with the future verdict of strangers that he cannot perform the work in the present. He has made his ego the center of the project, and that ego is a brutal, paralyzing tyrant. We have been conditioned to see life as a destination, a culmination. We race toward the graduation, the promotion, the weekend, the finished project, as if the real living begins only when we get there. We live in a state of constant, anxious anticipation, and we miss the entire journey. As the philosopher Alan Watts observed, it is like listening to a symphony only for the final crashing chord. We miss all the music. Sterling is not waiting for the finale. He is absorbed in the note being played right now. He is in the music. He is living in the process, not for the outcome. That is why his study is a place of peace, and David's office is a place of war. This is the chasm that separates them. David is crippled by an imagined perfect future. Sterling is grounded in a tangible, imperfect present. David's perfectionism is a fortress built to protect his fragile ego from judgment. Sterling's iteration is a tool used to solve the problem. One man is all ego, the other is all purpose. One man is drowning in the chaos of his own potential. The other man hunts that chaos with a red pen. David is exhausted by the idea of a problem. This man is energized by the fact of one. He finds the flaw, and he applies the fix. He iterates. He does not wait to perfect. The corporate mentorship program was a joke, a thinly veiled perk for retired executives. It was just a glorified tech support queue for the old guard, and today David's ticket had been pulled. He was dispatched to the home of a Mr. Sterling, a former project manager with some kind of legendary, intimidating reputation. David felt nothing. He was at the absolute nadir of his professional void, hollowed out by the relentless meaninglessness of his function. This was just one more task to be processed, one more system to reboot, one more act in the pantomime of his real job. He drove there on autopilot, the IT guy mask firmly in place, his internal world a flat line of grey apathy. He arrived at the house. It was not a monument to wealth, but a place of quiet, ordered substance. He was buzzed in, and there, in a study that looked like a command center, was Sterling. The man was in his 70s, sharp, with eyes that did not just look, but assessed. The most unnerving part was the silence. Sterling did not check his phone. He did not point vaguely at a router and walk away. He simply stood, hands clasped behind his back, and watched. David, used to being treated as an invisible utility, felt a strange prickle of unease. He went to work. The problem was simple, a router configuration error. He fixed it in under 5 minutes. He was, as always, efficient. He packed his kit, running his practiced script about rebooting and network stability. He waited for the polite, dismissive thank you. It did not come. Sterling just nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on David. Then his voice, gravelly and low, cut through the silence. He stated flatly that David was very efficient. A pause, and then, "But you hate it, don't you?" It was not a question, it was a statement of fact, a clinical diagnosis. The words hit David with the force of a physical impact. No one had ever named the truth so plainly. No one had ever dared. David's entire system glitched. The mask, the persona, the good son script, all of it, slammed into place. He recoiled, defensive. He forced a short, awkward laugh. He began to recite the lines that had defined his life. He said it was a good job. It was stable. It was secure. He was defending the very prison he had just been lamenting, a reflexive, pathetic act of self-betrayal. He was lying to this stranger just as he lied to his family, his companion, and himself. He was insisting on the value of the cage, because the alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. Sterling did not argue. He did something far worse. He laughed. It was not a sound of humor. It was a dry, sharp, impatient sound, the sound of a man who has zero tolerance for polite fiction. He told David not to lie to him. He said he had managed teams for 40 years. He knew the difference between men who were driven by purpose and men who were merely efficient. He could see the profound, hollow gap between the proficiency of David's hands and the utter deadness in his eyes. He said David was efficient, yes, but his purpose was clearly somewhere else. We are watching a profound collision, a moment where the world of comfortable, polite illusion crashes into the world of brutal, radical honesty. This is the philosophical gadfly in action. Sterling is acting as a Socratic force, the disruptive presence that stings the sleeping citizen into a state of uncomfortable self-examination. His observation is not an attack, it is a mirror. It is not designed to provide an answer, but to force David to confront his own devastating question. He is stripping away the social pretense, the good job script that David uses as armor. This is the power of the cynic. In the classical sense of Diogenes, our entire social structure is built on a soft, unspoken agreement. We will not name the quiet desperation in others if they agree not to name it in us. Sterling, from his position of age and authority, refuses to participate in this shared lie. He has no interest in David's mask. He is looking for the man, And then he delivers the final pattern-breaking blow. He does not ask about David's job title, his salary, or his certifications. He leans forward, his gaze cutting, and he asks the one question that bypasses every single one of David's defenses. What are you building? The question detonates in the silence. It is the direct pointing of a Zen master. It is not, what do you do for a living? It is not, what do you fix? It is, what are you building? The question makes a radical assumption. It assumes that David should be building something. It assumes he is a creator, not a maintainer. In that single moment, Sterling has given David an identity that no one in his life, not his family, not Nina, has ever afforded him. He is not being seen as a function, the IT guy, or a utility, the provider. He is being seen as a builder. David has no answer. His mind, which moments before was running complex diagnostics, is now a perfect, silent void. The script is gone. The armor is useless. He is just a man, completely exposed, standing in the silence, confronted by a single, simple question that has just undone his entire life. He cannot breathe. Why has this one question from this one stranger, this brief, accidental encounter, affected him more than a decade of his own internal, agonizing doubt? He is trapped, not by the man, but by the devastating simplicity of the truth. David is back at his desk, but he is not there. The fluorescent lights hum their flat, sterile note. The click of his mouse is a dull metronome, counting down the seconds of a life he is no longer sure is his own. He is closing a ticket, a password reset, the digital equivalent of sweeping the floor. He is efficient. He is hollow. But something is different. A question is playing on a loop in his mind, an echo that has burrowed deep beneath his consciousness. What are you building? The voice is Sterling's, but the question has become his own. It is a piece of code he cannot debug. He looks at the closed ticket. Resolved. He has resolved nothing. He thinks about the word Sterling used. Building. He, David, does not build. He maintains. He fixes. He is a repairman for other people's structures. He is the janitor in the digital cathedral, polishing the floors, replacing the bulbs, while others design the stained glass windows. The realization is a slow, cold sinkhole opening in his stomach. His entire professional identity, the wizard of the IT department, is a sham. He is not a creator. He is a custodian. The good job his family praises is an elaborate act of maintenance on a life that is fundamentally empty. This question is a splinter in his mind. It is a seed of doubt, and it is growing, its roots cracking the very foundations of his reality. This is the moment the great philosopher René Descartes defined as the beginning of all true knowledge, the application of radical methodological doubt. David, without knowing it, has begun to doubt everything. He is doubting the core assumptions he accepted as an absolute foundational truth. He is forced to ask, is this good job good? Is this stable life stable? Or is it, as he now suspects, an elaborate illusion he agreed to believe? This is the great disruption. The mythologist Joseph Campbell described this as the call to adventure. We often imagine this call as a grand trumpet, a declaration of destiny, but more often it is this. It is a quiet, disturbing question. It is an itch. It is a sense of profound wrongness in a life that looks perfectly right. It is the moment the universe knocks on the door of our comfortable, ordinary world and ruins our peace. David's peace, his numb, comfortable apathy, is now shattered. He cannot go back to the grey fog. The question has introduced a terrible, vibrant, and painful clarity. He goes home. The routine begins. The sofa, the television, Nina. He looks at her, but he is seeing their life through this new, harsh filter. She talks about their day, about the series they are watching. They are consuming. They are passively receiving a story crafted by someone else. And the question echoes again, sharper this time. What are you building? He looks around the living room, at the furniture they bought, at the subscription services they pay for. They are not building a life, they are curating a collection of comforts they are consuming, not creating. The dissonance is excruciating. This is the torment of the man in Plato's famous allegory, the prisoner in the cave. For his entire life, David has been chained, staring at the wall. His IT job, his safe relationship, the praise of his family. These are the shadows. They are the flat, two-dimensional, predictable projections of what a good life is supposed to look like. He watched them. He believed in them. He even took pride in his ability to analyze them. But Sterling, that man from the outside, was the one who had seen the sun. He was the one who had seen the real three-dimensional world of purpose, of building. He returned to the cave and told David, with one simple question, that the shadows are not real. Now David cannot unsee it. The shadows he once found comforting now look like what they are, flickering, empty, and fake. The praise of his family sounds hollow. The comfort of his routine with Nina feels like the chain. The question, "What are you building?" is not just a question. It is the light from the mouth of the cave, a blinding, terrifying beam that has illuminated his chains and the emptiness of the wall he has mistaken for his world. He is obsessed. He feels a new, unfamiliar hunger. He must know more about this outside world. He must understand the source of that light. The old answers are all dead. The old justifications, "It's a good job, it's stable," are just the babbling of a shadow watcher. The discomfort of his old life has finally become greater than his fear of the new one. He cannot resolve this dissonance by himself. He cannot ignore the question and go back to sleep in the cave. The only way to silence the echo is to go back to the source. He will seek out Sterling again, not as an IT tech on a service call. David finds himself standing outside Sterling's house again. He is nervous, his hands clammy, a ridiculous tension in his shoulders. The simple act of ringing the doorbell feels more terrifying than negotiating a company merger. His internal critic, the merciless voice of his low self-worth, is a hysterical chorus. It shrieks that this is pathetic, that he is bothering a retired man, that he is about to confess his most shameful, frivolous secret, his video game, to a man who only knows him as the IT drone. He is confronting his identity foreclosure, the belief that he is only allowed to be the person the world designated for him. But the silence of the last week, the constant agonizing echo of "What are you building?" has finally become too loud to bear. He rings the bell. Sterling answers the door, his expression neutral, but his eyes instantly sharp. David, exposed and vulnerable, begins to talk. It is clumsy. It is an outpouring of anxious confessions. He speaks about the 2 a.m. sessions in his dark office. He admits to the endless, paralyzing polishing of the first level. He speaks about his game, Tower, and how he has spent 2 years on a single 20-minute experience. He uses all the old familiar excuses. The physics are not perfect. The lighting needs more depth. The optimization is not quite there. He is presenting his perfectionism as a virtue, a commitment to quality. But he is also pleading for help. Then, in a moment of desperate honesty, he brings out his laptop. He opens the game engine and shows it to Sterling. He gives the older man the controller. It is a moment of profound, terrible vulnerability. He is not showing his resume. He is showing his soul. He has handed his innermost, most cherished secret to this sharp-eyed stranger. He is waiting for the verdict. He is waiting for the laugh, the patronizing sigh, the confirmation that his companion and his family are right, that it is a silly little game. Sterling does not speak. He watches the screen. He moves the protagonist through the level. He tries the jump. He notes the lighting. He plays for perhaps 60 seconds in total. The silence is absolute, a heavy, judging weight. David is suffocating under the pressure. The internal critic is having a field day, screaming about the flaws in the jump physics. Finally, Sterling sets the laptop down. His gaze returns to David, not with judgment, but with the cool precision of a surgeon. He confirms the quality. "The art is good," he says. "The control is solid. It works." Then he delivers the question that cuts through David's entire defense system. Why is this not on the market? David launches into his rehearsed defense, the torrent of excuses about the lighting, the physics, the optimization, the necessity of absolute flawlessness. He begins to repeat the script of his paralyzing perfectionism. Sterling raises a hand, a gesture of absolute finality. He stops David dead in his tracks. And then he speaks the truth. He tells David to stop lying. He says he is not polishing the product, he is polishing his armor. He says David is not afraid that the game will fail, he is afraid that it will succeed. He looks directly into David's eyes, piercing the pretense. He says that if the game fails, David can remain safe. He can continue to be the secure IT guy who just had a fun hobby. But if it succeeds, he will have to change. He will have to become the game developer. He will have to take responsibility for a life that is his. And that, Sterling concludes, is what truly terrifies him. This is the central lesson. This is the moment David is forced to identify his psychological pattern. The man who came in, crippled by perfectionism paralysis, is leaving with a raw, agonizing awareness that his paralysis is simply a sophisticated form of fear of success, fueled by his low self-worth. The genius of the mentor's method, the Socratic inquiry applied by Sterling, is that he did not give David a prescription. He gave him an identification. He named the beast. He showed David that the enemy is not the flawed physics in the game. The enemy is the ego that insists on a flawless, unachievable performance to avoid the shame of being human and imperfect. This painful moment of recognition, the click in David's mind, is the true beginning of his journey. He can no longer hide in the safe, comfortable lie that he is just a dedicated artist. He has been exposed. He is a man who is actively, meticulously sabotaging his own deepest desire out of terror. He now sees the bars of his cage, but seeing the bars is only the first step. David returns to his home office not energized but shattered. He sits at his computer, but the glow of the screen feels harsh, relentless. The moment of revelation, that searing clarity in Sterling's study, has left him exposed and raw. He saw the truth. His perfectionism is not about quality. It is a meticulously polished piece of armor, a shield against the inevitable, humiliating verdict of the world. Now, his mind is a battlefield. He tries to work on his game, on the next level. But the paralyzing voice of his internalized critic rises up with new, violent intensity. It screams that the armor is necessary. He tries to apply the wisdom. Sterling said to stop polishing the armor. Sterling said to focus on the work. He opens the level editor and looks at the single, beautiful 2-year-old level. He focuses on the logic. The jump physics, he knows, are slightly fluffy, too slow on the descent. He knows he could fix it. He starts to code the patch. He is conscious of the pattern. He tells himself, I am not polishing the armor. I am improving the product. He is trying to live the change. But the habit, the deep entrenched groove of his self-sabotage is far too strong. He works for hours, driven by a manic energy that is not true focus but desperate anxiety, and slowly, inevitably, the pattern reasserts itself. He is no longer fixing the descent speed. He is back to tweaking the color gradient of the background waterfall. He is redesigning a character sprite. He is obsessed with minute, irrelevant details. He has slid, smoothly and silently, back into the paralysis. He is doing work, but it is the wrong kind of work. It is the work of delay, the ritual of self-protection. He is intellectually aware of the pattern, but he is still emotionally enslaved to it. The hours pass. The sun rises. He is still there, exhausted and defeated, having accomplished nothing but the appearance of work. The ultimate irony of his situation is the devastating truth of his failure. He is now worse off than before. Before, he was blindly polishing, comfortable in his ignorance. Now he is polishing with full knowledge of his defeat. He has seen the answer, he has been given the key, and yet he still stands inside the prison cell, polishing the walls. This is the new, deeper level of his pain, the agony of conscious failure. This conscious failure is a profound moment in the journey, one that the old wisdom traditions understood intimately. It is the agonizing moment where we realize that self-knowledge is not enough. Knowing the right path is not the same as walking it. David is experiencing what Aristotle termed akrasia, weakness of the will. It is the state of mind where one acts against one's better judgment. He knows he should release the level and iterate. His intellect is clear, but his habit, his lifelong conditioned fear, is more powerful than his intellectual conviction. The body and the mind are in open rebellion. The thinkers who explored human consciousness understood that the mind is a creature of habit. The Russian philosopher P.D. Uspensky wrote about the mechanical nature of our lives, the machine of our conditioned selves that runs automatically, regardless of our wishes. David is seeing the truth of this. He can tell the machine to stop polishing, to start creating, but the machine is on autopilot. It is programmed for safety, for paralysis, for delay. His conscious mind has shouted a command, but the deeper unconscious structure of his fear has simply ignored it and continued its repetitive, self-sabotaging task. He has been defeated not by the difficulty of the code, but by the sheer inertia of his past. The weight of 2 years of habit, the comforting lie of perfectionism, has dragged him back down. He collapses his head onto the desk, not with anger, but with a profound, sinking despair. He had a moment of clarity, a vision of freedom, and now that freedom feels impossible. The awareness has done nothing but introduce a new layer of pain, the pain of knowing exactly why you are suffering, and yet being unable to stop. The narrator guide points out the critical lesson. Self-awareness is merely the diagnosis. It is not the cure. It is the flashlight that shows us the wound. But to heal, we must pick up the scalpel. David is paralyzed because he still believes the solution is to think his way out of the problem, to wish his way out of the paralysis. But the problem is not in the mind, it is in the action. The habit of not doing is broken only by the counter-habit of doing. He is missing the true, active prescription that Sterling offered. He has not understood that the solution is not less thought, but more service. Shame is a heavier burden than exhaustion. David finds himself back at Sterling's door, but this time feels different. The first visit was an accident, a confession pulled from him. This one is a surrender. He is not here as an IT tech. He is here as a failure, a man who was given the map and still could not find his way out of the cell. He explains, his voice flat with defeat, what happened. He says he saw the pattern, he saw the armor, he understood the lie of his own perfectionism. And then he went home and spent the entire night polishing the armor, unable to stop. He asks the question that is now burning him alive. Why? Why is knowing not enough? Sterling listens, his expression unchanging. He is not surprised. He is not disappointed. He seems to have been waiting for this exact moment, this inevitable second step. He tells David that knowing the name of your disease is not the cure, it is merely the diagnosis. David is still trapped, Sterling explains, because he is still trying to solve the wrong problem. He is still obsessed with his own performance. He thinks the problem is his perfectionism, but that is just the symptom. The disease, Sterling says, is the masterpiece fallacy. We are as a culture obsessed with this fallacy. We are addicted to the idea of the finished, flawless final product, the masterpiece, the myth of the genius who emerges from the cave with a perfect, complete work. And this, Sterling explains, is an elaborate and toxic lie. It is a lie that worships the ego. It makes the entire creative act about the artist, about their genius, their reputation, their godlike ability to get it right in one perfect stroke. This is the root of David's paralysis. He is trying to build a monument to his own imaginary genius. He is terrified that the world will see the cracks in the marble. This is why his awareness failed him. He is still focused on himself, on his fear, on his armor, on his inability. His entire worldview is a closed loop of self-obsession. The antidote, Sterling lays out, is not to find a better way to polish. The antidote is to destroy the very idea of the masterpiece and replace it with a more powerful, more honest, and infinitely more effective concept, the concept of iteration. He tells David that nothing of value is built as a masterpiece. It is built in layers. It is built by shipping a flawed version 1, and then letting the world, the user, the feedback, tell you what is broken. This is the shift. It is the core of the ancient Japanese understanding of creation, the beauty of the imperfect, the value in the incomplete. It is the engine of all modern progress, the philosophy of continuous improvement. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be useful. The goal is to improve. David has been hiding in his office, polishing his ego, terrified of a verdict. But Sterling reveals the truth. The verdict is not the end. The verdict is the beginning. The feedback, even the harsh criticism, is not an attack on his ego. It is the roadmap. It is the data he needs to make version 1.1. This is the great solution to the paralyzing ego. It moves the focus from me to you. It moves the goal from being perfect to being of service. David's perfectionism is a disease of self-focus. The cure is to become relentlessly other-focused. His job is not to protect his own feelings, not to build his armor. His job is to serve the player. And he cannot serve a player with a game that is sitting perfect and unreleased on his hard drive. He can only serve them by giving them what he has, and then crucially by listening to their complaints. Sterling leans forward, his voice dropping, his words now a precise, surgical, and terrifying command. He tells David that his assignment is no longer to fix the game. His assignment is to stop. He is to stop all development on new features. He is to stop polishing the waterfall. He is to take the flawed, imperfect, fluffy level 1, just as it is. He is to write a simple description, level 1 only in development, feedback required, and he is to upload it. He is to ship the product. This is the moment. The advice is not a comfort, it is a terror. Sterling is not offering a solution, he is offering a crucible. He is telling David to do the one thing his entire psychology is built to prevent, to intentionally expose his imperfect self to the world. He is telling him to take off the armor, to walk into the arena, and to let the world tell him exactly where he is broken. The masterpiece fallacy is the ego's ultimate defense, and Sterling has just commanded David to commit the ultimate act of ego suicide, to surrender to the process. He is home. He is at his desk. The ritual of the last 2 years, the secret, shameful, late-night polishing, is over. Tonight, the purpose is different. It is not to hide. It is to expose. He has the web portal open. It is a stark, simple interface, a place for indie developers, a digital stage for the unknown. He has compressed the files for level 1. He has written the simple, terrifyingly honest description Sterling dictated. Project Tower, level 1 only, in development. Feedback honest is necessary. His finger is on the mouse, the cursor hovering over a single small pixelated button. Publish. It is the smallest action. It is the end of the world. And then it rises. The voice. It is not the quiet, nagging critic he is used to. It is a primal, biological scream of absolute terror from the deepest part of his psyche. It is the accumulated fear of his entire life, awakened by this single defiant act. It floods his mind with a torrent of catastrophic images. He does not just hear the words, he feels them. They will destroy you. They will laugh at you. They will see the flawed jump physics, the amateur lighting, and they will expose you. You are not a developer. You are an IT technician playing dress-up. You are a fraud, and you are about to hang a giant neon sign over your own imposter syndrome. This is the great, invisible enemy. It is the force that rises to meet us at the exact moment we decide to transcend our limitations. It is a force as real, as predictable, and as impersonal as gravity. Its sole function is to maintain the status quo, to keep us paralyzed in the familiar, safe, and stagnant present. It is the universal adversary of all creation, and it manifests most powerfully not when we are failing, but when we are on the precipice of a breakthrough. His hand is frozen, paralyzed by this internal onslaught. The logic he learned in Sterling's study, the cold, clean wisdom of iteration, is a tiny, rational whisper, and it is being drowned out by this hysterical, emotional siren. He is caught in the crossfire, physically unable to make the click, and it is in this precise moment of excruciating vulnerability, as he is balanced on the knife edge of his own decision, that the door to his office opens. The invisible enemy, having failed to stop him with internal force alone, now manifests externally. It takes on a form he loves. Nina stands there. She sees the screen. She sees the rigid tension in his shoulders, the sweat on his brow. She does not see a man on the verge of liberation. She sees a man in the grip of a dangerous obsession. Her own anxiety, her deep-seated need for their shared stability, immediately surfaces. She asks him, her voice a soft, practical weapon, what he is doing. She notes how stressed he looks, how late it is. She suggests gently that this is all too much, that maybe this is not the right time. She says he is pushing himself too hard, that he is not thinking clearly. And then she deploys the anchor, the ultimate reminder of the real world. She asks him about his cloud certification. She asks with genuine concern if he has been studying. That single question recontextualizes his entire struggle. It frames his act of terrifying courage as a childish, irresponsible distraction. It yanks him out of the existential arena and puts him back in the beige cubicle. She does not do this out of malice. She does it out of her own fear. She is the guardian of their ambition imbalance, the pact that says he provides the stability so she can feel secure. This is the critical, devastating moment. His own internal critic, the voice of his low self-worth, has just been validated, amplified, and given a loudspeaker by the person closest to him. The internal voice that screams, "You are a fraud," has just been confirmed by the external voice that says, "Why are you not focused on the real job?" He is completely surrounded. This is the herd morality, the term the philosopher of the individual, Nietzsche, used. It is the voice of the tribe, the collective, which values safety, predictability, and mediocrity above all else. The tribe despises the individual who dares to leave the path. The tribe, through Nina, is pulling him back. It is telling him to be safe, to be secure, to be normal. It is telling him that his dream is a danger to their comfort. He is now fighting a two-front war. He must defeat the voice in his head that tells him he is worthless, and he must defeat the voice in his ear that tells him his passion is a distraction. Both voices are screaming the same, deafening, paralyzing command. Do not. Do not click. Do not change. Do not become. He is caught in the ultimate trap. To move forward, he must betray his own deepest fears and the expectations of the person he lives with. He is frozen, trapped between the two voices, the internal scream of his own inadequacy and the external voice of his companion's practical fear. They are a perfect, suffocating harmony, a chorus demanding he return to the safety of the known, the voice of his family's expectations, the voice of his partner's security, and the voice of his own self-hatred have all merged into one overwhelming command. Stop. Retreat. Be the man they pay you to be. Be the function. Do not be the creator. This is the moment the herd, as the philosophers of the individual called it, closes ranks, trying to pull the straying member back into the fold. This is the absolute zero point of the human will. It is the moment the great Danish thinker, Søren Kierkegaard, identified as the center of all human existence. It is the choice that cannot be solved by logic. Logic is on Nina's side. Logic, safety, and all available evidence point toward the real job. The leap, however, is not a logical step. It is a passionate, absurd, terrifying commitment in the absence of evidence. It is the belief in a self that does not yet exist, a belief that must be acted upon to become real. This is the vertigo of freedom. He is not choosing between two options. He is choosing between being a thing, a function, and becoming a person, a creator. The internal scream is deafening. Nina's plea is heartbreaking. But now a third voice enters the chaos. It is not warm. It is not comforting. It is the cold, precise, surgical logic of Sterling. It is the memory of the red pen. Stop lying. Stop polishing your armor. You are not protecting the product. You are protecting your ego. The verdict is not the end, it is the data. This new logic does not offer comfort. It offers a different, harsher truth. It reframes the entire conflict. Nina and his critic are trying to protect his ego. Sterling's voice is telling him to kill his ego, to trade the fantasy of being a perfect, unjudged genius for the reality of being an imperfect, active builder. He looks at Nina. He sees the genuine fear in her eyes. He sees the life she wants, the stable, secure, predictable path. He feels the pull of that safety. It is a warm, comfortable, drowning sensation. He sees the man she needs him to be, the IT guy, the provider, and he finally understands. He understands that to choose that path, to comfort her and quiet his critic, is to choose a living death. It is to choose the mask forever. He turns, slowly, back to the screen. The internal voice is still screaming. He types the description. Level 1 only. Feedback necessary. His hand is shaking so hard he can barely control the mouse. He moves the cursor. He places it over the Publish button. He closes his eyes. He clicks. The page refreshes. A new status appears. Live. It is done. This is the moment of existential creation. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre built his entire worldview on this single agonizing instant. He argued that we are not what we think or feel or intend to be. We are what we do. Our essence, our identity, is defined not by our potential, but by the sum of our actions. In the second before that click, David was a hobbyist. He was an IT technician with a dream. In the second after that click, he is a developer. He has acted himself into existence. He has, in this one act, defined himself against the script his family wrote for him and against the stability his companion depends on. The silence that follows is not peaceful. It is the vast echoing silence of the irreversible. He feels no joy. He feels no triumph. He feels a profound, almost arctic calm. It is the calm of a man who has just set fire to his own ships, a man who has deliberately destroyed his only route of retreat. He has jumped from the cliff, not knowing if there is water below, but knowing with absolute certainty that he could not spend one more second standing on the edge. He has stepped out of the shadow world of polishing and potential and entered the harsh, bright, real world of action and consequence. He has surrendered his ego to the process. He has, as Sterling commanded, stopped protecting himself from the verdict. He has invited it in. The armor is gone. The product is live. He has exposed his imperfect, vulnerable, true self to the world. He looks at the screen, at the live status. He has published his code. He has published himself. And now, in the terrifying, empty silence that follows, he must wait. The battle for his ego is over. The battle for his purpose has just begun. The act is irreversible. He has sacrificed his safety, his stability, and the harmony of his relationship for this one singular act of authenticity. The click was the sound of a universe ending, or it was supposed to be. David had pushed the button. The status on the page changed to live. He had done the impossible. He had taken 2 years of his hidden soul, his secret work, his armor, and he had thrown it into the center of the arena. He braced for the impact, for the roar of the crowd or the hiss of the critics, for the immediate world-changing verdict. And what he received, in that first minute, that first hour, was the one thing he had not prepared for. He received an absolute, profound, and deafening silence. The world did not roar. The world did not hiss. The world did not even seem to notice. He spent the next 24 hours in a state of suspended animation. He sat, hitting the refresh key, watching the analytics. The downloads counter remained at 0. The comments section was an empty white void. Each click of the refresh button was a small, cold tap on his exposed nerve. The arctic, terrified calm he felt after the leap began to curdle into a familiar, sick, cold dread. The catastrophic failure he had imagined would have been a relief. This was oblivion. This is the first and most brutal test of purpose. We are all addicts. We are addicted to the response, the external validation, the immediate feedback loop of the world's applause. We post, we share, we create, and we wait, holding our breath, for the like that proves we exist. The ego demands this. It needs the applause to feel real. But purpose, the kind the great spiritual masters spoke of, operates on a different plane. It is not concerned with the echo. It is concerned only with the integrity of the voice. David's act of clicking publish was the victory of his purpose. His act of refreshing the screen, his desperate need for the 0 to change, is the rebellion of his starving ego. This is the great wisdom of detachment, the ancient principle of right action. The philosophy teaches us that we have a sacred duty to our work, to the action itself. We are commanded to be the archer who focuses with absolute, monk-like precision on the form, the breath, the pull of the string, the release of the arrow. That is our domain. But the moment the arrow leaves the bow, it is no longer ours. The wind, the outcome, these are not in our control. He had performed the action, but he had remained fatally attached to the outcome. He had defined success as the world's applause, and in the silence, his ego was screaming that he had failed. The sun started to filter through his blinds, illuminating the dust in his office. He had not slept. He stared at the zero. His internal critic, the voice of his low self-worth, was back. It was not screaming this time. It was worse. It was smug, calm, and reasonable. It sat in the chair next to him and whispered, "See, I told you, you are not a developer. It said you are just an IT tech, and you are a fool. You just sacrificed your stability, you just terrified your companion for a dream that nobody else in the world even cares enough about to criticize. You are irrelevant." He was still sitting there, a ghost in his own office when Nina found him. She took one look at his face, the grey exhaustion, the deadness in his eyes, the empty analytics page on the screen. She saw a man broken by a foolish risk. Her anxiety from the night before melted into a soft, genuine, and devastating pity. She put a hand on his shoulder. She tried to make the pain stop. She told him it was okay. She told him it did not matter. It was, she said, just a little game after all. He was so stressed. He had tried, and that was the brave part. But now he could let it go. And then she offered him the keys to his old prison, not as a jailer but as a rescuer. She reminded him of his real life. She said, her voice full of loving, practical comfort, "It is okay, really. At least you have your IT job. You have that promotion to think about. You are safe." She was trying to comfort him with the one thing he had just risked his life to escape. She was handing him back his armor, telling him it was okay to put it back on, that the world outside was too cold anyway. He heard her words. He felt the genuine, loving intention behind them, and it was, in that moment, the single most crushing blow of all. The silence from the world was indifference, but the comfort from his home was a confirmation of his failure. It was the validation of his family script, the voice that said, "Thank God you have the real job." He had sacrificed everything for his passion, and in one terrible 24-hour cycle, he had discovered that the passion did not want him, and his real life was just waiting, patiently, to reclaim him from his delusion. Was this the end? Was Sterling's philosophy just a pretty idea? And this empty screen and this practical, loving comfort, the hard, cold, and inescapable truth? He existed in the grey fog of his humiliation. The 24 hours of silence from the digital world had been followed by the quiet, crushing pity of his domestic one. Nina's attempt at comfort was a life sentence. He was a man who had leaped from a cliff, only to land in a soft, suffocating net of safety and condescension. He was no longer a creator, not even a failed one. He was just a man who had made a foolish, stressful mistake and was now being gently guided back to his stable, sensible, soul-crushing life. The final, inevitable blow came not as an attack, but as an act of mercy. His phone rang. It was his boss from the IT department. The man's voice was a study in practiced, corporate empathy. He said he heard David was feeling burned out. He said the company valued his stability and his decade of loyalty. And then he made the offer. The promotion. The support manager position he had vaguely gestured at months ago was now officially on the table. More money, a corner office, a team to manage. Real responsibility, the boss called it. It was a lifeline. It was a concrete, tangible, socially applauded escape from the echoing failure of his little game. Nina saw the call. She saw the look on David's face as he listened. A new, desperate hope ignited in her. The exhausted, pitying look she had given him was gone. She told him this was perfect. This was the sign they had been waiting for. He could finally stop all this stress. He could delete the game. He could forget the late nights. They could be secure. They could be happy. They could buy the house. She was not just encouraging him, she was begging him with her entire being to take the bread. We are watching a man being offered a rescue from his own freedom. And the most terrifying part, he wants it. The philosophers who explored the human psyche knew this was our deepest, most secret paradox. We cry out for freedom, but we are, in reality, petrified by it. The thinker Erich Fromm identified this as the fear of freedom. True freedom, the kind David tasted when he clicked publish, is not a gentle, liberating breeze. It is a crushing, absolute burden. It is the burden of total responsibility. When you are a cog in a machine, you can blame the machine. When you are the machine, there is no one left to blame. The silence of his game's failure was not the world's fault. It was his. This promotion was a beautiful, warm, inviting offer to escape that terrible responsibility. It is the great dark parable of the Grand Inquisitor. That story told by Dostoevsky described how humanity, given the choice between painful, terrifying freedom and secure, comfortable bread, will always choose the bread. David is the man in that parable. He has been given the cold, agonizing freedom of the Creator, and he is starving. His boss and his loving companion are the Inquisitors. They are not evil. They are compassionate. They see his pain, and they are offering to take his terrible, unmanageable freedom away. They are offering to put him back in the real job, to give him the bread of a salary. All he has to do is renounce his impossible, failed, meaningless passion. All he has to do is admit he was wrong. All he has to do is say yes to the promotion. The relief would be immediate. It would be a warm bath. The zero on his download screen would no longer be a judgment. It would be an irrelevant joke. He would be a manager. He would be secure. He would be safe. He would be praised by his family. And his companion would finally be able to sleep at night. He would have the security of the prison he knows, a prison that at this moment looks so much more comfortable. He looks at Nina. He sees the desperate, hopeful plea in her eyes. She is offering him an end to his suffering. He looks at his computer, at the live status of his game, a monument to his own irrelevance. The path of the masterpiece led to this, to humiliation. The path of the manager leads to a corner office. The choice seems obvious. The choice seems logical. And yet, he hesitates. He is trapped in the center of his own life, caught between two opposing forces. Will he accept the bread, the warm, comfortable, respectable death of the prison he knows? Or will he choose to starve, holding on to the cold, painful, and perhaps pointless freedom of his own failed creation? The decision is a physical weight, a stone in his gut. He is caught in the vice. On one side, the promotion, the money, the corner office, the warm, desperate relief in Nina's eyes. It is the bread, the sweet, intoxicating promise of an end to this agonizing, pointless freedom. It is the world he knows, the real job, the script he was born to play, offered to him on a silver platter, a rescue from his own failed rebellion. On the other side, the empty white screen of his analytics page, the digital zero that represents his irrelevance, his failed passion. The choice is impossible because it is a choice between a comfortable lie and a painful, humiliating truth. He cannot make it. The man who clicked publish is gone, evaporated. In his place is the hollowed-out IT tech, the fraud, the man who is desperate for an answer. But he cannot ask Nina. She has already given her answer, her plea for the bread. He cannot ask his family. He knows what they would say. There is only one person who ever saw the builder beneath the mask, one person who spoke the language of purpose over efficiency. He needs the one voice that can cut through this fog. He needs the man who gave him the map, the man who set him on this terrible, lonely path. He needs Sterling to tell him what to do. It is an act of pure desperation, the last move of a cornered man. He gets in his car. He drives to Sterling's house. He is not sure what he will say. He is a child running to a parent, hoping for a simple binary command, yes or no. He needs the mentor to take this crushing weight of freedom off his shoulders, just for a moment. He needs the external authority to validate the path, to tell him that starving is noble, or that eating the bread is a necessary strategic retreat. He just needs not to be alone in the decision. He pulls up to the house. It is still, too still. The sun is shining, but the house itself seems to be in shadow, as if the light bends around it. He gets out of the car, a sick, cold feeling crawling up his spine. Something is wrong. He walks up the path and he sees it. It is not a welcome mat. It is a sign, stark and commercial, pounded into the front lawn. For sale. He stops. The world tilts. He looks at the windows. They are dark, empty, reflecting the sky like the eyes of a dead man. The house is a shell. He walks to the door, a stupid mechanical impulse. He rings the bell. The silence that answers is absolute. He rings it again, harder, an act of denial. He peers inside. The room, the study that was a command center of purpose, is gone. It is just a box, an empty beige box. The desk is gone. The books are gone. Sterling is gone. There is no note. There is no forwarding address. There is no final piece of wisdom. There is only the void. This is the moment the hero narrative conveniently forgets. The point where the guide vanishes. The wise old man who gives you the map is not allowed to walk with you into the abyss. This is the structural necessity of the journey. The guide's job is to show the student the path, but the student's job is to walk it alone. As long as Sterling existed, David had a crutch. He was, in the language of the great philosophers of the will, still the camel. He was a beast of burden, dutifully carrying the weight of Sterling's lessons. Stop polishing the armor. Iterate. Ship the product. But one cannot live by another's wisdom. To truly transform, the camel must shed its burden. It must become the lion. It must find its own voice, its own yes and no. It must destroy the old values, the need for a real job, the fear of the herd, not because the mentor said so, but because it has willed it. Sterling's disappearance, whether by death or departure, is the final brutal and most necessary lesson. He has kicked the crutch out from under David's arm at the exact moment David needed it most. He has forced the camel to stand on its own, or to fall. David stumbles back to his car, the feeling of abandonment a cold physical sickness. He is no longer just a man with a choice. He is a man utterly, existentially, and terrifyingly alone. The world's verdict on his passion is silence. His companion's verdict is a plea for his old false self, and his mentor, the one anchor of his new true self, has evaporated. He has no guide, he has no feedback, he has no one to ask. He is standing in the center of his own life, with a promotion in one hand and a failed dream in the other. The crutch is gone. He is truly, absolutely, and finally on his own. He drove back in a silence that was heavier and more absolute than any sound. The discovery of the empty house, the for sale sign, was the final severance. The crutch was not just kicked out, it had evaporated. The last line of external authority was gone. He was now in every sense untethered, floating in a cold black void. He walked back into his own home, but it was not a sanctuary. It was just the box he inhabited. He went to his office, the scene of his foolish, failed rebellion. He sat in the dark. The monitor was off. There was no light. He was a man suspended between two dead worlds, and he was completely, terrifyingly alone. His mind, no longer frantic, was a flat, grey plane. He reviewed the facts. Fact 1. The past, his real job, was holding a door open for him. The promotion, the corner office, the salary bump, the look of profound, desperate relief it would bring to Nina's face. He could see it all, a clear, well-lit path. It was a path of security, of social approval, of bread, and it felt in his bones like stepping into a velvet-lined coffin. He could not go back. To accept that promotion now would be the final act of self-betrayal, an admission that his entire, brief, painful attempt at life was just a stress-induced fever dream. Fact 2. The future, his passion, was a crater. It was the 0 on the analytics page. It was the mocking, echoing silence of the world's profound indifference. His grand gesture, the click that was supposed to redefine his existence, had landed with all the impact of a single snowflake falling into the ocean. It was not a failure. It was a non-event. It was an irrelevance. The path of the builder, the creator, was a sheer, lightless cliff that he had already fallen from. He could not go forward. There was nowhere to go. Fact 3. The guide was gone. The one voice of external wisdom, the man who held the map, had vanished, proving that the map was perhaps just another illusion. He sat there for an hour, or maybe 3. The paralysis was total. This was not the anxious, fidgety paralysis of his old perfectionism. This was the profound, heavy, absolute stillness of a system that has no valid next move. He was checkmated by his own life. This, we are told, is the true dark night. It is not a poetic sadness. It is a state of spiritual and psychological purgatory. It is the moment the old self, The IT guy, the good son, the stable provider, has finally truly died. It has been burned away by his own actions. But the new self, the creator, has failed to be born. He is left with nothing. He is not a person. He is just the void between two identities. He eventually stood moving like a sleepwalker and left the office. He drifted into the living room. She was there. Nina. She was on the sofa, just as he had left her, bathed in the now familiar cold blue light of her phone. She was scrolling, her thumb moving with that same steady, hypnotic rhythm. She was a physical body in the room, but her consciousness was elsewhere, completely absent. She was the digital ghost, the living symbol of his isolation. He stood there, a hollow man in a dark room watching his companion commune with a glowing rectangle, and he had never felt so invisible. She looked up, startled, as if he were a stranger who had just wandered in. Her eyes refocused, and then she smiled. It was a distracted, shallow smile. The smile one gives to a server or a colleague, not to the person you share a life with. She asked if he was okay, if he had eaten. Then, her voice casual, as if discussing the weather, she said she was so excited about the promotion. She was already looking at listings for houses, just for fun. She was not asking him if he would take it. She was not engaging with his crisis. She was, in her own digital fog, simply assuming. His entire existential war, his leap, his failure, his mentor's disappearance, none of it had even registered. This was the true, absolute, and final bottom. It was not the silence of the internet. It was not the empty house. It was this. It was the realization that the one person who was supposed to see him, to be his partner in this life, was not even in the room. He was a ghost in his own home, haunting a woman who was herself, haunting a different digital world. He was trapped. He could not go back to the past that offered security. He could not go forward into the future that offered nothing. He was a man with no identity, in a home with no connection, facing a choice with no right answer. It was the ultimate agonizing despair, to be a self that is completely and hopelessly stuck. He stood in the hallway, an invisible man. She, his companion, the digital ghost, had looked up from her phone with that distracted smile, her mind already spending the money from the promotion he had not accepted, a promotion that felt like a death sentence. She was planning a future based on a man who no longer existed, a man who, at that very moment, was finally and completely disintegrating. He looked at her, and he did not feel anger. He did not feel resentment or sorrow. He felt nothing at all. The great, agonizing 20-year war he had been fighting inside his own head was simply, suddenly, over. He turned without a word and walked back to his small, dark office. He did not turn on the light, he did not boot up the computer. He sat in his chair in the absolute tomb-like silence. He was not thinking about the promotion. He was not thinking about Nina. He was not thinking about the 0 on his analytics page. He was not thinking about the for sale sign or the mentor who had vanished. He was not thinking at all. He had, at last, stopped trying to solve the problem. He had stopped trying to find the right path. He had stopped fighting. He just gave up. We are taught to see surrender as the ultimate weakness. We are a culture of fighters, of grinders, of hustlers. We are told to never give up. But this moment of absolute quiet defeat is not weakness. It is the most terrifying and most necessary act of strength. This is the moment of true liberation. For David's entire life, his suffering did not come from his job, or his game, or his relationship. His suffering came from his resistance to what is. He was fighting reality, trying to force his life into a shape it was not meant to take. Now he has finally stopped fighting. His ego, the inner critic, the perfectionist, the terrified child seeking approval, that entity had until this moment run his life. It fed on the conflict, it thrived on the problem. It told him he was a failure, and he fought it. It told him he was a fraud, and he tried to prove it wrong. It was a constant, exhausting internal war. But in this total surrender, he has done the one thing the ego cannot survive. He has taken away the problem. He has accepted the I. I am a failure. I am a fraud. I am irrelevant. Okay, by accepting the verdict his ego feared, he has starved it of its power. The pain, the suffering, the inner torment simply ceases because the resistance is gone. This is the great paradoxical wisdom of the East. It is the power of Wu Wei, the art of non-doing. David's life until now had been a frantic, desperate doing. He was a man trying to row a boat upstream against a powerful current. He was polishing, striving for perfection. He was publishing, striving for freedom. He was driving to the mentor, striving for an answer. All of it was effort. All of it was resistance. And he was exhausted. Now in this dark room, he has finally completely dropped the oars. He has surrendered to the current, to the flow, and he is finding for the first time that the river itself has a direction. He had spent his whole life building armor. The IT guy was armor against his family's judgment. The perfectionism was armor against the world's judgment. He was a man defined by his defenses. But his quest for security, as the philosopher Alan Watts would say, was the source of his anxiety. He was trying to find a solid, permanent floor in a universe that is fundamentally fluid. The zero downloads, the for sale sign, the digital ghost, these were the universe's final, brutal lessons. There is no solid ground, there is no permanent security, and in this moment of surrender, he has finally let go of the bank, stopped grasping for certainty, and accepted the terrifying, liberating truth of insecurity. He has stopped fighting the water, and he is discovering he can float. He sits in the dark, the house is silent. He is not happy, he is not sad. He is simply empty. And that emptiness is, for the first time in his life, not a void to be filled with panic or distraction. It is just space. He is at point zero. The old David, the one built of fear and ambition and armor, has just taken his last breath. He has fully collapsed. He has accepted his failure, his irrelevance, his nothingness. He is a clean slate, a razed city, an empty hard drive, formatted and waiting. He has no idea what comes next. He has no plan, no hope, and no fear. He has only this silence, this darkness, this presence. We watch this collapse, this total annihilation of the ego, and we are conditioned to see it as an end. We see a man who has lost. But this is not an end. This is the prerequisite. This is the crucible. This is the zero from which the one must be born. The man who was is gone. The question that hangs in the dark, a single silent thread of potential, is, who is he now? He sat in the darkness, a man reduced to zero. The frantic, anxious energy of the perfectionist was gone. The heavy, self-hating weight of the fraud was gone. Even the desperate hope of the seeker had evaporated. He was just empty. He had surrendered to the void, accepted his irrelevance, and in that acceptance, the internal war had finally, mercifully, gone silent. He was not a success. He was not a failure. He was nothing. And the nothingness was, for the first time, not a terror, but a quiet, neutral space. Hours passed. The black of the room turned to the grey of pre-dawn. A mechanical impulse devoid of hope or fear finally moved him. He should clean up the mess. He should delete the project, erase the digital monument to his own foolishness, and sever the last dangling thread of his failed identity. He turned on the monitor, his hand steady, his mind calm. He was not an artist in pain. He was a technician performing a simple clean-up task. The web portal, the scene of his humiliation, loaded. The analytics page. He did not even look at the numbers. He moved the mouse toward the Settings tab, toward the Delete Project button, but his eye snagged on something, a change. In the comments section, that vast white empty void of indifference, there was a line of black text, a single line. It had appeared in the deep of the night, while he was lost in his dark collapse. He stopped. He read it. The words were simple. The atmosphere is incredible. The double jump feels a little floaty, but I could not stop playing. Where is level 2? He read the line again, and a third time. It was not praise. It was not a judgment. It was a conversation. It was a bug report wrapped in a request for more. In that instant, the memory of Sterling's voice, the mentor he thought had abandoned him, returned with the force of a thunderclap. But it was not the memory of the man. It was the memory of the lesson he had failed to understand. Stop suffering from the masterpiece fallacy. Stop protecting your ego. Let the world tell you what is broken. David had been staring at the 0 downloads, seeing it as a verdict on his self, his worth. He was still trapped in the ego's game, the binary of praise or failure. He had been waiting for the world to call him a genius or a fool, but this comment was neither. It was simply data. And then the second, deeper lesson, the one represented by Sterling's red pen, locked into place. Iterate. Don't perfect. Sterling's entire philosophy, which David had tried to understand as a tool for his own success, was not about him at all. He had been looking at his game as a mirror, a reflection of his own value. But the game was not a mirror. It was a window. It was a bridge. It was a tool to be used by someone else. The realization was staggering. His passion was never supposed to be about him. This is the great human pivot, the moment of true meaning. The great psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the ultimate void, built his entire understanding of our purpose on this one, singular truth. Meaning is not found in self-actualization, in polishing our own ego, or in chasing our own success. That is the path of the void. Meaning, Frankl argued, is found only in self-transcendence. It is found in dedicating our lives to something outside ourselves, to a cause, to another person, or in David's case, to the service of the work itself, to the player. His perfectionism, his paralysis, his fear, his entire agonizing internal war, it was all rooted in self-obsession. He was trapped in the lonely, cramped prison of the I. This single comment had just given him the key. The key was the other. The key was service. The purpose of his game was not to prove he was a genius. The purpose of his game was to fix the floaty jump for this one single anonymous player. This is the community feeling the philosopher Alfred Adler spoke of. David's low self-worth was not a verdict. It was a symptom of his uselessness, his self-focus. He looked at the comment. The double jump feels a little floaty. He looked at the promotion, the bread that Nina had offered, the life of a manager. That life was just another form of self-focus, a different, more comfortable prison. He looked back at the comment. He had his purpose. It was not a grand, world-changing destiny. It was small. It was tangible. It was a bug report. For the first time, he did not feel fear. He did not feel hope. He felt a quiet, calm, profound sense of utility. He was no longer a failure. He was a builder who had just been handed his next set of instructions. The paralysis was broken. The energy that flooded David's office was not the manic, terrified rush of his perfectionism. It was not the hollow, defeated apathy of his surrender. It was something new. It was the clean, cold, quiet hum of a machine that has just been given a clear and simple function. He was no longer a man at war with himself. He was a technician, and he had just been handed a bug report. He reread the comment, the single black line of text that had pulled him from the void. The double jump feels a little floaty, but I could not stop playing. Where is level 2? This, he realized, was the sound of Sterling's red pen. It was not an attack on his worth. It was not a verdict on his soul. It was just data. It was the voice of the user, the other he had been so terrified of, pointing to a specific, tangible, and fixable problem. His entire body felt different. The crushing weight of the masterpiece fallacy evaporated. In its place was a feeling of profound, simple utility. He was no longer thinking about escaping or surviving or being a genius. He was thinking about how to serve. He was thinking about how to fix the jump. The energy in his system had, for the first time in his life, shifted from the axis of fear to the axis of purpose. This is the great, powerful secret of the iterative path. It is the philosophy of continuous, incremental improvement, the engine of all real growth. David's old model, the masterpiece model, was a trap. It was a static binary system, perfection or failure. It was a model that centered his own ego. It was an all-or-nothing gamble that guaranteed paralysis, because the stakes, his entire self-worth, were too high. But this new model, the iteration model, was completely different. It was dynamic. It was fluid. It was a process, not a destination. And most importantly, it was not about him. The work was no longer a mirror for his ego. It was a bridge to a user. He turned to his keyboard, but he did not open the game engine. Not yet. He did something even more radical. He clicked reply on the comment. His fingers moved with a new certainty. He typed, "Thank you, that is excellent specific feedback. The floaty jump is something I was stuck on. I am working on a patch for it right now." This simple act was a revolution. He had, for the first time, entered into a dialogue. He was not a failed artist hiding in a tower. He was a craftsman in his workshop speaking to a customer. He had stopped protecting his armor and had instead invited the user inside the process. Then, and only then, he opened the game's code. He navigated to the physics module, but he was looking at it with new eyes. He was not looking for perfection. He was looking for floaty. He saw the variable that controlled the protagonist's gravity on the downward arc of the jump. It was set too low, a remnant of an old aesthetic choice. He adjusted the number. He recompiled. He played the level. The jump was tighter. It had more weight. He adjusted it again, a fraction more. He tested it. Better. It was not perfect, but it was no longer floaty. This is the profound meditative peace the great Stoic masters spoke of. It is the end of suffering. Suffering, they taught, is born from the gap between our desires and reality. David had suffered because he desired to be a perfect, lauded genius, but the reality was that he was an imperfect builder. By abandoning the desire for perfection and simply embracing the reality of the task at hand, the suffering vanished. His purpose was no longer a grand, terrifying mountain called success. His purpose was the single, tangible, achievable task in front of him: fix the jump. He was finally fully in the present moment. He was no longer building an identity. He was building a game. The shift was absolute. He felt a quiet, generative energy from the work, not the draining anxiety he used to. He was a craftsman. He was a problem solver. He had taken his hidden passion and, by focusing it on the needs of one single person, he had transformed it into micro-value. He had stopped trying to be an artist hiding a masterpiece and had, in that moment, become a true artisan, serving his community. But this was only one fix, one comment. He had proven his value to one person. He has the fix. The code is compiled. The protagonist's jump is tighter, less floaty, more deliberate. It is a tangible, functional improvement. David has done the work. He has responded to the data. But now, he finds himself in the exact same position as before, at the same agonizing choke point, his hand frozen, the cursor hovering over the button to upload patch. The loop of action is not complete until the work is shipped, and in this moment, the old, familiar terror rises up, a cold systemic response. He has done this once, but the enemy is not gone. It has simply been waiting. The inner voice, the one that defines his low self-worth, has returned. It is not screaming this time. It has changed its tactics. It is a cold, rational, sneering whisper. It does not deny the feedback he received. It minimizes it. It whispers that he is a fool. It says he is rebuilding his entire life, sacrificing a promotion, ruining his relationship, all based on one single anonymous comment from a stranger. It asks him what if that person was just being polite, or worse, what if they were an idiot? What if this fix is not a fix at all? What if he just broke something else? It tells him he is still a fraud, just a more reactive, desperate one. This is the true, insidious nature of the patterns that hold us captive. They are not logical arguments to be defeated once. They are deep, emotional grooves carved by years of repetition. They are survival mechanisms. David's perfectionism, his fear of judgment, was a shield. His brain is now screaming at him that he is insane for lowering that shield, not just once, but a second time, and for such a trivial reason. The old identity, the safe IT guy, the polisher, is fighting for its life. It is trying to drag him back to the familiar, safe paralysis of overthinking, of never shipping, of protecting his ego from the verdict. But something is different. David hears the voice. He feels the cold knot of fear in his stomach. The physical reaction is the same. But his relationship to it has changed. He is not fighting the voice. He is not arguing with it. He is not trying to prove it wrong. He is simply observing it. He is acknowledging its presence, like a car alarm blaring down the street. It is a noise. It is a relic of an old, terrified operating system. It is there, but it is no longer in command. His focus has shifted. He is no longer listening to the fear. He is listening for the signal. And the signal, the only thing that matters, is the comment. This is the great pragmatic truth. The philosopher William James proposed that the truth of an idea is not found in its logical purity, but in its cash value. What practical difference does it make in your life? David's old truth, "I am a fraud who must be perfect," had a cash value of 0. Its practical result was 2 years of paralysis, misery, and a folder full of unpublished work. His new tentative truth, "I am a builder who serves a user," has a new cash value. Its practical result is this patch. The action is the proof. He is not thinking his way into a new identity. He is acting his way into one. He writes the patch notes. The words are simple, technical, and free of ego. He does not apologize for the old jump. He does not boast about the new one. He simply states, patch 0.1.1. Adjusted the double jump gravity based on community feedback. Should feel tighter now. Please let me know. The phrase community feedback is a revolution. He is not a lone genius. He is a collaborator. He is not hiding. He is engaging. He takes a breath. He feels the fear, and he clicks upload. The patch is live. The feeling that follows is not the Arctic, terrifying calm of his first leap. That was an act of existential defiance, a leap into the void. This is a transaction. It is the quiet, solid, deeply satisfying click of a tool locking into place. It is the simple, profound piece of a loop completed. He did not defeat his inner critic. He did not vanquish his fear. He simply made the fear irrelevant. He demoted it. He gave it a seat in the back of the bus, while he, the builder, took the wheel. The fear is still there, chattering away, but it is no longer driving. The great Stoic thinkers taught this as the ultimate antidote to the imagination. We suffer more in our own minds, in catastrophes of our own design, than we ever do in reality. David's perfectionism was a 2-year-long agonizing suffering over an imaginary judgment. This small imperfect action, this simple patch, is the cure. He has stepped out of the imaginary world of what if and into the real world of what is. He has taken the fear that lives in the head and defeated it with an action that lives in the hands. He is not a genius. He is not a fraud. He is just a man who fixed a bug. He closes the laptop. He did not change the world. He did not silence his demons. He just shipped a patch. He has completed the first full cycle of iteration. Listen, acknowledge, fix, deliver. He is no longer paralyzed. He has taken the first real, repeatable step on the path of service. He is not cured. He is simply working. And for the first time, he understands the profound difference. The terror is no longer about his worth. The new, calmer anxiety is about the work. Did the patch fix the problem? He is no longer waiting for a verdict on his soul. He is just waiting for the next bug report. He did not check the page with hope. He checked it with the cool, detached focus of a technician. He was not looking for applause. He was looking for data. Did the patch work? Did the user respond? This new anxiety was clean, functional, and blessedly free of ego. It was not the agonizing, "Am I worthless?" It was the simple, practical, "Did I fix the bug?" He refreshed the page. The previous quiet, the single comment that had saved him, was gone. It had been joined by another, and another. He scanned the new text, his heart, which had been a dead weight, suddenly feeling light, buoyant. The words were not flattery. They were confirmation. Someone wrote that the jump was 1,000 times better, that it felt right now. Another user, a new one, someone who had just downloaded it, chimed in. They said they loved the atmosphere, that the floaty jump mentioned in the patch notes must have been bad, because this one felt great. And then the line that truly changed the equation, the one that shifted the foundation of his world. When is level 2 coming out? I cannot wait. This was no longer a bug report. This was a demand for more. This was not a verdict. It was an invitation. He was still processing the implications of this, the shift from fixer to builder, when a different notification popped up. A small green icon he had added to the page on a whim. He had assumed it was a useless, arrogant gesture. Now it had a +1. He clicked. A new patron, a $5 donation, and a message attached. It said simply, "This is awesome. Keep going." He looked at the $5. He looked at the words "keep going." It was not euphoria. It was not a rush of pride. It was the solid, quiet, undeniable sound of a fact slotting into place. For his entire adult life, he had been at war with a voice in his head, the voice of his low self-worth, the one that defined him as a fraud, an imposter, a worthless technician. That voice had built its entire argument on a foundation of fear, conjecture, and hypothetical failures. It was a phantom, an elaborate theory of his own inadequacy. But now, he had something that was not a theory. He had $5. He had a patch note. He had a user asking for level 2. This is the great powerful antidote to the poison of self-rejection. It is not, as we are often told, a battle of affirmations, a fight to convince ourselves that we are worthy. That is just another internal ego-based war. The true antidote is proof. It is the external, undeniable evidence of our own utility. David's inner critic, that merciless, tyrannical voice, was suddenly profoundly silent. It had no argument. It could not debate a fact. It could not argue with a $5 transaction. His worth was not something he had to feel anymore. It was something he had just demonstrated. This is the very essence of a meaningful life. The great thinkers who survived the void, like Viktor Frankl, knew that happiness or self-worth cannot be the goal. It is a fool's errand. It is a phantom we chase. Worth, they taught, is only ever the byproduct. It is the exhaust that is created when the engine of our life is burning for a purpose outside of itself. David had spent a decade miserable, trying to find self-worth by polishing his ego, by perfecting his armor. He had found it in less than 48 hours, not by looking for it, but by fixing a bug for a stranger. He had, without even knowing the term, found his purpose. The Japanese call it ikigai. It is the place where the 4 great circles of life converge. He had found what he loved, building his game. He had found what he was good at, coding and design. He had found what the world needed, this user who needed level 2. And now, with that small green notification, he had found the first shimmering proof of what the world would pay for. The circles had locked into place. He was not a fraud. He was not a hobbyist. He was a developer. He leaned back, the silence in his head a strange, new, peaceful landscape. He had proven his value. He had proven his new path was real. But this new, quiet, powerful feeling of authenticity, this first taste of a life built on purpose, was a new form of danger. It was a new declaration of war. He had just proven to himself that this path was real, but he was still living a life, a job, a home, a relationship, built entirely on the old fraudulent one. The internal war was over. The external one, the collision between the man he now knew he was and the man the world demanded he be, was about to begin. The quiet, generative hum of the new life has taken hold. David is no longer the man paralyzed by a masterpiece. He is the craftsman, the artisan in his workshop. His days, which were once a grey fog of meaningless tickets, are now a focused, rhythmic cycle of action. He wakes early. He reads the new comments. He finds the bug reports. He fixes, he patches, he ships. He's not just building level 2. He's building it with a small, growing community, a group of people who are no longer a terrifying, hypothetical verdict, but collaborators. The $5 donations on his Patreon have become a small, steady stream. It is not a living, not yet, but it is something more important. It is a paycheck. It is tangible, undeniable proof of value. A counter-argument to the internal critic that had defined his entire life. He is in this new state of flow, sketching a new level on a pad of paper, the work feeling clean and honest when the phone buzzes on his desk. It is not a notification from a player. It is the real world, the old world, calling him back. He sees the name, his boss from the IT department. A cold, familiar dread instantly extinguishes the warm focus of his work. He lets it ring twice, a small, futile protest before answering. The voice on the other end is professional, friendly, and utterly disconnected from the man David is becoming. It is a polite corporate check-in. The boss is just following up on the promotion offer, the corner office, the new salary. He says they value him, but he needs an answer. He needs it by the end of the day. The call ends. The silence in the office is heavy again, but it is no longer the peaceful silence of surrender. It is the tense, suffocating silence before a detonation. He has been pulled violently from the special world of his new purpose and thrown back into the ordinary world of his old false identity. He is standing at the exact agonizing crossroads he had been able to ignore while he was focused on fixing the jump. Now, the two paths are mutually exclusive, and a choice is being demanded. He can no longer be both the IT manager and the indie developer. He is a man standing in two canoes, and they are now drifting apart, forcing him to make a choice or be torn in two. Nina comes home. She does not need to ask what is wrong. She sees the old, familiar mask of the hollowed-out IT guy has returned. She sees the tension in his shoulders, the deadness in his eyes. She asks, her voice quiet, if that was his boss. He nods. The ambition imbalance, the fundamental misalignment of their entire relationship, comes to a head. Her anxiety, which had been a low, constant hum, now becomes a clear, piercing signal of panic. This is it. This is the moment her security is either affirmed or destroyed. She confronts him, her voice tight with a fear that sounds almost like an accusation. She tells him he is going to take it. She frames it as a statement, not a question. She lays out the stakes, their stakes, the life she has built her own sense of safety upon. The house, their future, the ability to stop worrying. And then she uses the word that acts as a hammer blow to his new identity. She asks him if he is really going to throw all of that away, their entire future, for a little game. That phrase, little game, reveals the unbridgeable chasm between them. To her, his life's work is a frivolous hobby. To him, it is the only real thing he has ever done. We are watching the moment the philosophers of the will defined as the only one that matters. This is the ultimate existential choice. The great Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard called this the either-or. This is not a choice between a good job and a bad job. It is a choice between two entirely different and mutually exclusive ways of being. It is the choice between the aesthetic life, the comfortable, safe, secure, and predictable path of the bread, and the ethical life, the path defined by a passionate, terrifying, and absolute commitment to a self-defined purpose. He cannot have both. One self must be sacrificed. The mythologist Joseph Campbell saw this as the crossing of the final threshold. David has answered the call. He has met his mentor. He has survived the abyss. But now he stands at the final gate. He can no longer be a tourist in the special world of his purpose while maintaining a mortgage in the ordinary world of his old script. He must choose where he is going to live. He must, as Campbell would say, choose which world is real and which one he is willing to let die. The safe life his companion and his family script are demanding, or the meaningful life his new authentic soul requires. He looks at her pleading, terrified face. He looks at his monitor, at the community waiting for level 2. He cannot have both. He looked at Nina, her face a mask of desperate, pleading terror. The question hung in the air between them, an ultimatum. The house, their future, the little game. She was offering him one last chance to choose the bread, to come back to the warmth, to be the man she needed him to be. All the voices of his past, his family's pride, his own deep-seated fear, his family script, were all speaking through her, begging him to choose the safe, respectable, and hollow path. He saw the love in her eyes, but he also saw for the first time the bars of the cage her love had become. He knew with a certainty that was not emotional, but simply structural, that to say yes to her would be the final, irreversible no to himself. He did not argue. He did not defend his work. He did not try to explain the profound, quiet peace he felt when he was fixing the jump. He knew, with that same cold clarity, that he could not make her understand a language she was not equipped to hear. Her entire operating system was built on the logic of security. His was now being rebuilt on the logic of purpose. They were, quite simply, incompatible. He turned away from her, the look of betrayal on her face, a sharp, physical pain he had to absorb. He picked up his phone. He did not hesitate. He was not making a choice in this moment. He was simply executing a choice that had already been made, deep in the silent, dark office of his surrender. He dialed the number, his boss. The conversation was brief, quiet, and profoundly anticlimactic. David was polite. He was grateful for the offer. He was respectful of the opportunity, and he said no. He did not explain why. He did not mention a game. He simply stated that he was refusing the promotion. He went further. He explained that he would be scaling back his hours, effective immediately, moving to a part-time consultant basis to handle critical systems, and would be training his replacement. He was, in effect, resigning from the identity he had held his entire adult life. He was not angry. He was not triumphant. His voice was a flat, calm monotone, the voice of a man signing a legal document. He hung up. The act was done. The anchor to the real world, the safe job, was cut. He stood in the silence of the room. He felt solid. It was not joy. It was not relief. It was the strange, quiet, and deeply unfamiliar peace that comes from perfect, terrifying alignment. For his entire life, his internal world had been a civil war. His desires, his fears, his family's expectations, and his secret passions had been in a constant, grinding, exhausting conflict. This one, simple 10-second phone call, had ended the war. The good son and the creator were no longer fighting. The creator had just accepted the good son's unconditional surrender. This is the state the great philosopher of the will Nietzsche spoke of. This is the peace that comes not from finding comfort, but from becoming who you are. It is the moment the internal chaos is forged into a single, unified directional force. David is no longer a collection of conflicting impulses. He is a vector. He has a why. His body, his mind, and his actions are, for the first time, all pointing in the same direction. This is not happiness. It is something more rare and more powerful. It is authenticity. It is the end of the profound soul sickness that comes from living a lie. The ancient philosophers, like Plato, had a name for this. They called it the just soul. They described the psyche as a chariot, pulled by two powerful horses, the appetite, our desire for security, for bread, for comfort, and the spirit, our desire for honor, for meaning, for purpose. David's chariot had been, for his entire life, violently dragged around by the terrified, hungry horse of his appetite, his need for security. But in this one quiet act, the reason, his newfound purpose, had finally, firmly taken the reins. The internal chaos was over. There was no more fight. There was only the path. He had, in that one call, broken the family script. He had rejected the good job his family had praised. He had, in effect, chosen to disappoint them in order to be true to himself. He had broken his identity foreclosure, the belief that he was only allowed to be the IT guy. The old false self was dead, not in a blaze of glory, but in a quiet, polite phone call. The man who turned to face Nina was not the man who had picked up the phone. He was a stranger in his own home. The old apartment, the one that had been the comfortable, secure prison, is gone. This new one is smaller. The walls are barer. The furniture is sparse. There is an echo when he walks from the kitchen to the small spare room that now serves as his office. This is the physical, tangible consequence of the choice he made, the price of the authenticity he demanded. He has less comfort. He has less security. He has less space. And for the first time in his adult life, he is not suffocating. He is not a ghost in his own home. The air in this small, empty room is his. The quality of the work has changed. It is no longer the secret, shameful 2 a.m. act of a man hiding from his life. It is just his life. He wakes up, makes coffee, and sits down at his desk. He is not running from a real job he hates. This is his real job. He is exhausted, but it is a new kind of exhaustion. It is not the hollow spiritual deficit of the IT guy who spent 9 hours resetting passwords. It is the deep, clean, physical fatigue of a craftsman who has spent the day building. His old job drained his soul, this one feeds it. This is the profound philosophical difference between the two kinds of work that define a human life. His old job was not work in the creative sense, it was labor. It was the endless, cyclical, Sisyphean task of maintenance. He was a cog in a machine, performing a function that was consumed as quickly as it was done. It was the work of pure survival, the biological imperative, and it left him empty because it produced nothing that lasted. It was the hamster wheel, and he was paid simply to keep running, never to arrive, never to build anything, but merely to maintain the system. This, however, is work. This is the act of creation. He is not maintaining, he is building. He is adding something to the world that was not there before. This work has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It results in a tangible thing, a level, a patch, a game. This is the act that separates us from the endless cycle of mere survival. It is the act of imposing a human, purposeful order onto the chaos of the void. He is no longer just processing tickets that disappear. He is writing code that becomes a world. He is leaving a mark, however small. He has found the state that feels like alignment. His passion for building worlds, the thing he hid like a secret, is now his daily task. His skill, the code he taught himself in the dark, is now his primary tool. The world's need, which he once saw as a terrifying abstract verdict, has become a concrete daily list of bug reports and feature requests from a community. And the money, the small steady stream from his supporters, is the proof that the cycle is sustainable. The parts of his life are no longer at war, they are finally working together, a single integrated engine. He is not a lone genius in a tower, he is a craftsman in a guild. He spends hours a day in the developer chats, not as a fraud, but as a peer. He is posting screenshots, asking for feedback on a new lighting model, sharing a solution he found for a physics bug. He is building in public. He is iterating. He is no longer hiding, no longer polishing his armor, no longer terrified of the verdict. He has fully embraced the process. The work is hard, the hours are long, but it is honest, it is his. This new, quiet peace was not free. It had a cost. The cost was the corner office he was offered. The cost was the safe promotion, the approval of his family, the comfortable, predictable future. The cost was the relationship that was built on the foundation of his old, false self. The empty chair in his living room, the silence in the apartment, is the proof of that cost. He did not get to keep both worlds. He had to choose. He chose this. He chose the small, empty room, the hard work and the clean conscience. He chose the terror of meaning over the comfort of the void. He types a new line of code. He is building the foundation for level 2. He is no longer the IT guy who fixes other people's broken systems. He is no longer the man defined by the existential void, the man who asked, "Is this all there is?" He is the builder. He is the man who, having found nothing, has decided to make something. He is not running. He is not hiding. He is, for the first time, simply and truly working. He is building his new world, one line of code at a time. The small new apartment is quiet. David sits at his kitchen table, a mug of coffee in his hand. He is looking at his laptop, but it is not the game engine. It is a dashboard, a simple black and white page with a graph. It is his sales data from the online store. The line on the graph is not a dramatic vertical spike. It is not the explosive success of a blockbuster. It is something better. It is a slow, steady, stubborn upward climb. It is modest. It is consistent. It is sustainable. He is not looking at a lottery ticket. He is looking at a harvest. This graph, this slow, upward trending line, is the final, undeniable, real-world answer to every phantom that haunted him. It is the answer to his family's script, the one that said, "Thank God you have a real job." This, he thinks, is the first real job he has ever had. His old paycheck was a bribe. It was a payment, a retainer, to keep him quiet, to ensure he kept performing the role of the IT guy, the man who maintained the systems but built nothing. It was a fee he accepted in exchange for his silence and his slow spiritual death. This graph is not a bribe. This is a transaction. This is the clean, honest, beautiful logic of the market. He had created something of value, something that solved a problem for other people. The problem was not profound. It was just a need for a moment of escape, of challenge, of atmosphere. He had serviced that need. He had listened to the feedback. He had fixed the floaty jump. He had built level 2. He had, with his hands, created a tangible good. And now the world, in its own impersonal, logical, and unsentimental way, was paying him for it. A great thinker once observed that the world does not pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you do. For his entire life, David had been paid for his potential. Now he was being paid for his utility. He had, without knowing it, stumbled upon one of the most powerful principles of a meaningful life. He had spent years of his life in a state of self-obsessed paralysis. He was focused on his armor, his fear, his genius, his masterpiece, his own ego. He was chasing success, and it fled from him like a ghost. But the moment he surrendered, the moment he gave up on his own ego and shifted his focus to an external purpose, to service, to fixing the bug for one anonymous player, was the moment the entire dynamic reversed. He had stopped chasing success, and it had, in its own quiet way, begun to follow him. It is the great, unseen law of value. When you focus, with a singular, almost spiritual intensity, on providing real, tangible value to others, the reward mechanism of the world eventually, as if guided by an unseen hand, kicks in. The money, he realized, was not the goal. The money was just the feedback. It was the signal. It was the proof, in a language the family script could not deny, that his passion was not silly. It was not a little game. It was, in fact, the most valuable, practical, and potent thing he had ever possessed. His low self-worth, the voice that had defined him as a fraud, had been built on a foundation of his own dependency. He was a man living on the approval of his boss, his family, his companion. He was a good son who lived on praise. But this graph was not praise. It was proof. He was no longer dependent on anyone's approval for his sense of self. He had built his self. He had proven his own worth in the most tangible way possible. This was not the borrowed, fragile security of a corporate salary. This was the deep, solid, unshakable peace of self-reliance. He was a man who had built his own house, and he knew with absolute certainty that he could survive the winter. He takes a sip of his coffee. The taste is real. He is not a genius. He is not a visionary. He is a craftsman. He is a builder who has found his guild. He is, finally, at peace with his work. He has solved the first half of the equation. He has escaped the professional void. He has built a life that is sustainable, meaningful, and true. He has found his purpose, and it has set him free. He closes the laptop. The graph is just a number. The feeling is what is real. The feeling of being, at last, a man who is useful. But as he stands in the quiet of his new, small and very empty apartment, the silence that follows this victory is profound. The hum of the server, the chatter of the community fades, and he is left with the echo. He has solved the problem of his work. He has proven his value. He has answered the question of what he does, but he did not do it in a vacuum. The choice had a cost. The liberation from his old life also meant the liberation from his old love. He had found his professional purpose, but he was now forced to confront the second and perhaps more deafening silence. What is the cost of that freedom, and who is there to share it with? The graph on his laptop screen was a line of undeniable objective proof. He was a builder. He was a creator. His work had value. He had at last solved the great professional void that had been swallowing him whole. He had found his purpose. But as he sat in the profound, stark silence of his new, smaller apartment, this victory over the first half of his crisis only served to illuminate the echoing emptiness of the second. He had found his meaning, but in doing so, he had lost his companion. The apartment was not just smaller, it was empty. The silence was not peaceful. It was the sound of a cost that had been fully and irreversibly paid. He remembered the final conversation. It was not a fight. A fight would have been easier. A fight implies two people engaged in the same conflict. This was not a conflict. It was a schism, a quiet, seismic uncoupling of two worlds that could no longer occupy the same space. It was the night he had made the phone call, the night he had calmly and with a terrifying newfound peace refused the promotion and resigned from his old false life. He had hung up the phone, the act of self-definition complete, and he had turned to face Nina. Her face was not angry. It was white with a dawning, horrified disbelief. She had been begging him just moments before to take the bread, to come back to safety. She had been so certain, so utterly convinced, that his little game was a fever that would break. She had asked him, her voice a small, thin sound, what he had just done. He told her the truth, simply and without apology. He said he had refused the promotion and was scaling back his hours. He told her the truth, simply and without apology. He said he had refused the promotion and was scaling back his hours. He told her he was going to pursue his development work full-time. The words landed in the room with the flat, heavy thud of stones dropped into a deep well. Her disbelief curdled in an instant into a raw, desperate panic. This was not a man in crisis. This was a man she no longer recognized. She accused him of being selfish, of being insane. She listed with frantic, logical precision everything he was throwing away: their security, their future, the house they had planned, her sense of safety. She asked him, her voice finally breaking, how he could do this to her. The David of a month ago, the man defined by his need to please, the man crippled by a low self-worth that made him a hostage to the needs of others, would have imploded, he would have apologized, he would have backtracked. He would have sacrificed his newfound self on the altar of her fear, just to make the conflict stop. But that David was gone. He had been burned away. The man standing in that living room was the man who had faced the zero and survived. He was the man who had proof of his own value, the man who had earned his own $5. He listened to her panic, and he did not hear an attack. He heard, with a profound, surgical, and deeply sad clarity, the sound of an echo. He was hearing the voice of his own family, the voice of the herd, the voice of the world that values security above all else. He realized in that moment the devastating truth. The only thing that had held their relationship together was his own weakness. His need for her approval, his willingness to be the provider she required, was the glue. Now that his weakness was gone, now that he had found his own internal source of value, the glue had dissolved. They were no longer a couple. They were just two fundamentally incompatible people clinging to the wreckage of a shared illusion. She was a subtle saboteur, not because she was malicious, but because her entire identity was invested in the stability he was now necessarily destroying. She needed him to be the man he would rather die than be. This, he knew, was the final application of Sterling's lesson. He had spent 2 years polishing a game he was afraid to release. He had, he realized, spent his entire relationship doing the same thing. He was polishing a dynamic he knew was broken, pretending it could work, all to avoid the terrifying verdict of their incompatibility. He had to stop. He had to apply the same cold, honest logic. He had to stop protecting himself from the verdict. He had to, at last, ship the truth. He calmly, and with no anger, told her that he could not be the man she needed, that he would not. The silence that followed was the end of their world. This is the great, cold, and lonely lesson of the individual. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of it as the pathos of distance. It is the necessary, often tragic act of separating oneself from the values of the herd. To become who you are, you must, by definition, stop being the person the tribe demands you be. You must create a space, a distance, so your new authentic self has room to breathe. Nina was the herd. She was the valley. She was the warm, comfortable, safe, and mediocre life that was trying to pull him back down from the mountain he had just begun to climb. His departure was not an act of cruelty. It was an act of survival. He sat in his new, empty apartment. He had paid the full price. The dual chaos was at last resolved. The professional chaos had been solved by the application of purpose, by shifting his focus from his ego to his service. The interpersonal chaos had been solved by the application of boundaries, by finding his own non-negotiable value and refusing to sacrifice it even for love. He had found his purpose in the code, but he had found his freedom in that final, quiet, devastating goodbye. He was, for the first time in his life, fully and completely his own. But the question, the one that echoed in the new, empty space, was the final one. He had found his purpose, but he had lost his companion. Was this liberation, or was it just a new, more profound, and much colder form of isolation? His new apartment is small, but the silence in it is his. He sits at his desk, the monitor glowing, not with the harsh, cold blue of a corporate cubicle, but with the warm, creative light of his own world. He is working. He is not polishing, he is not hiding, he is building. The work is not frantic, not driven by the fear of a verdict. It is calm, rhythmic, and purposeful. It is the steady, generative process of a craftsman who is no longer at war with his tools, but in perfect, fluid dialogue with them. He has found his flow, that sacred, quiet space where the doer disappears, and there is only the doing. He has traded the suffocating, stable, good life for this, a small room, a clear conscience, and a single, true, and sustainable purpose. We have followed this journey from the absolute bottom, from the grey fog of a life lived on other people's terms, to this single, bright point of creation. This is the transformation that is possible when the armor of the ego is finally set down. It is a difficult path, often a lonely one, but it is the only one that feels real. We are here to explore these maps, the paths that lead out of the void. If this story, this chronicle of a man escaping his own paralysis, has resonated with you, if you have ever felt the grip of that same fear, then you are part of this exploration. Support the journey. The simplest way to show you are on this path with us is to leave a like on this video and to subscribe to join this ongoing search for meaning in the middle of the chaos. David's focus is no longer just on his own code. He has another window open, a developer chat, a community of fellow builders. He is not the isolated, terrified artist anymore. He is a member of a guild. He scrolls through the conversations, no longer seeking validation, but offering assistance. His gaze lands on a new post, a long, anxious paragraph from a new user. The user writes that he has been working on his first level for over a year, that he is stuck, that he knows the lighting is not perfect and the code is a mess. He writes that he is terrified that if he releases it, the real developers will laugh at him, that they will see he is a fraud. He writes that he is paralyzed. David reads the words, and he sees a ghost. He sees the man he was 2 years ago, a man trapped in the masterpiece fallacy, a man so terrified of a judgment that he chose to live in a prison of his own making. He feels the echo of that old, cold fear. He knows with an absolute surgical certainty what that man needs. It is not technical advice, it is not sympathy, it is the key, it is the antidote, it is the one terrifying and liberating truth. His fingers move to the keyboard. He types the simple 5-word command that Sterling gave to him, the words that were his own execution and his resurrection. He types, "Stop polishing, just ship." And there it is. The circle is complete. The journey, as the great students of myth described, is finished. But this is the final, most crucial and most often forgotten stage. It is not enough to survive the abyss. It is not enough to find the treasure. The hero's true function, the final act of the journey, is to return with the elixir. It is the sacred moral duty to bring the map, the wisdom, the antidote back to the community, back to the ones who are still trapped. David, the man who was once the prisoner, has become the guide. He has become Sterling. He is the man who, as the ancient philosophers described, was once chained in the cave, staring at the shadows of security and perfection. He has, through great pain, broken those chains and walked out into the blinding, terrifying light of the real. He has seen a different way to live, but he did not stay outside. He has returned. He is now the one who has the duty to go back down into that familiar darkness, to find the others who are still chained, and to tell them with the quiet authority of one who knows that the shadows are not real. That is the final form of purpose, not to save yourself, but to find what you have learned and then to give it away. Give. This story, his story, is not just about a video game. It is about the heavy, intricate armor we build piece by piece to protect our fragile ego from the world. It is about the profound, suffocating paralysis that comes from worshipping a masterpiece that we can never and will never achieve. It is about the quiet, revolutionary courage it takes to finally set down that armor, to embrace the imperfect, and to find your value not in being, but in doing. David found his level 1, the flawed, floaty, but real thing he had to ship to become free. This brings the question finally back to us, back to you. What is your level 1? What is the great project, the difficult conversation, the hidden passion, the true self, that you are endlessly polishing in the dark? What is the one imperfect, terrifyingly real thing you are hiding, that you must ship to break your own paralysis? This is the work. This is the path. We want to know what you are building. Share your level 1, your own story, in the comments below.